I'm going back to my parents' place for a while, I said. If that's the case, don't bother coming back, my husband snapped. Here's the divorce papers. They're already filled out. Take them and get out. He threw the papers at me, and without a word, I took them and went straight to City Hall to submit them. Little did he know, he would soon regret this decision. My name is Jessica, and I am 28 years old. I had been married to Bob, who is 30, for a year. Before our marriage, I worked as a freelance graphic designer from home while Bob worked in the sales department. I met Bob 2 years ago when I was feeling down after a breakup. A friend introduced us, and although I wasn't looking to date anyone, Bob had already fallen for me after seeing my pictures. I don't mind starting as friends, he said, asking me out. During our outings, Bob's kindness won me over, and before I knew it, I had fallen in love with him. Once I shared my feelings, we started dating. 6 months later, Bob proposed and we got married. Jessica, you're a lucky woman. You've been chosen by me, the ace salesperson at the company, chased by many girls. Bob would often boast after we got married. Indeed, he was the star of the sales department and quite handsome. However, his constant bragging started to bother me. At the time, though, I found it endearing. Love is indeed blind. I adored my confident, kind, and strong husband Bob. Though we hadn't yet started a family, I cherished every moment spent with him. However, a year into our marriage, I encountered a problem. Jessica, when will I get to see my grandchild? That was my mother-in-law. From the moment we married, she began pressing us about starting a family every time we visited. Given that their house was just a short 15-minute drive away, we ended up having dinner there several times a month, enduring her persistent reminders. We're still young, and we want to enjoy our time together a bit longer, I replied. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law let out an audible sigh. You say you're young, but you'll be 30 soon. I'll give you another year, but that's it. You should start having babies soon. It won't get any easier. When I married into this family, I got pregnant right away. Besides, you're just sitting around at home, aren't you? It seemed my mother-in-law had never really acknowledged my job since before I married Bob, perhaps because few work-from-home options existed back then. Furthermore, the reason we hadn't started a family yet was because Bob insisted on us enjoying more time together, just the two of us. No, that's not true. I work diligently from home. I've told you before, I earn nearly as much as Bob, I argued. Isn't Bob just covering for you? You're just fooling around, she retorted. That's not true. Bob, please say something, I pleaded. Huh? Oh, Bob seldom intervened in these situations. According to him, there's no point arguing with Mom. She doesn't listen, so it's a waste of time. Just let her talk and don't take it too seriously. Even though I was upset, I wished he would stand up for me more. Instead, he sat on the couch, absorbed in his phone, barely engaging in the conversation. Well, you can play around all you want, but since you have so much time on your hands, you should fulfill your duties as a wife. If you don't have a baby within this year, I may have to ask you to leave Bob, she declared. What? I exclaimed. It's simple. Bob is our only child. We need a daughter-in-law who can produce an heir, she explained. My husband remained silent, offering no defense while I faced this criticism. Fuming with anger, I confronted him as soon as we got home. Why didn't you say anything back there? You're the one who keeps saying we should wait to have children. You need to stand up to your mother, I demanded. I'm sorry. Mom's just stuck in her old ways. She can't let go of the idea that we should have a baby right after getting married, he replied. I understand that, but can't you speak up for me with your mother? I implored. Like I said, Mom's stubborn. It won't make a difference what I say. Remember, Jess, just nod along and it'll blow over, he replied. But she threatened divorce if I don't get pregnant this year, I said. Don't worry about that. She's just trying to scare you, he assured me. By the way, not because of what she said, but I actually want us to start thinking about having a baby. Why are you so hesitant? I'm not opposed to it. I just want more time for just us two. Once we have a baby, you'll be completely focused on the baby and we won't have time alone, he explained, hugging me. I found his concern endearing and hugged him back. However, despite his words at home, he never supported me when we visited his parents. After that, his mother began calling me daily to inquire if I was pregnant yet. I grew weary of this constant pressure. I had never confided in her before to avoid putting my husband in a bad light, but I had reached my breaking point. Finally, I explained to her that Bob wasn't ready for children yet, but she brushed it off. That's because you're making Bob say that. He would never say such a thing, she insisted. That's not true. Bob is the one who wants to wait. I want a baby too, I asserted. Oh really, Bob, is that true? She turned to him. No, that's not exactly it. I mean, I do think we should enjoy just the two of us a bit longer, and Jessica is okay with that. He stumbled through his response. I was stunned by his words. While I agreed with Bob's desire to wait, his response made it sound like I had misled his mother about wanting a baby. As expected, his mother shot me a disapproving look after hearing his wavering answer. You see, even Jessica agrees with me. Now, please hurry up and have a baby. Don't keep us waiting, she insisted. In the end, I was the one who took the blame. When I confronted Bob at home about how he had spoken to me, he simply said, I'll handle it better next time, but never brought it up again. Lately, I've been feeling increasingly anxious, wondering why I had to endure such treatment. There was a reason behind Bob's reluctance to have children, though. The truth came to light on a particular day off. It was one of those days when Bob spent time with his friends, leaving me home alone. Initially, I lounged around, dreading the upcoming visit to my in-laws and anticipating more criticism from my mother-in-law. With Bob away, I decided to take a break and went shopping. A solo shopping trip, a rare treat for me lately, helped clear my mind, and I decided to take a break at a cafe with a terrace. There, something unbelievable caught my eye. It was Bob with an unfamiliar woman and a baby. I quickly ducked out of sight to avoid being seen by Bob. They seemed engrossed in conversation, and suddenly, Bob gently picked up the baby and comforted it with a smile. I couldn't comprehend what I was witnessing. My mind went blank as I continued to watch. He had said he was with friends, but was this woman one of them? Since we married, Bob had introduced me to all his friends, and I had never met this woman before. Then Bob kissed the baby on the cheek. Seeing Bob show such tenderness to a strange baby after claiming he wasn't ready for children with me pained my heart deeply. The thought crossed my mind that perhaps he didn't want children with me because he didn't truly love me. Tears blurred my vision uncontrollably. Could he be cheating on me? The mere idea constricted my chest even more. I snapped a photo of them together, appearing happy, with the intention of confronting Bob later. Just as I was preparing to leave, Bob handed a white envelope to the woman and the baby, and they started to depart. I hurriedly made my way home, desperate to avoid encountering Bob. I'm going back to my parents' place for a while, my husband declared, his tone firm as he tossed the divorce papers in my direction. If that's how it's going to be, don't bother coming back. Take these papers and get out. That's how Bob ended our marriage, right then and there, with those papers hitting the floor between us. I picked them up silently and headed straight to City Hall to file them. Little did Bob know, he would soon regret his decision. My name is Jessica, 28 years old. I had been married to Bob, who is 2 years older than me, for just over a year. Before tying the knot, I worked as a freelance graphic designer from the comfort of home while Bob thrived in the sales department. I met Bob 2 years ago when I was rebounding from a breakup. A mutual friend introduced us, and despite my initial reluctance to date, Bob, taken by my photos and story, asked me out, suggesting we start as friends. As Bob and I spent more time together, I found myself deeply touched by his kindness. Before long, I realized I had fallen in love with him. Once I expressed my feelings, we began dating. 6 months into our relationship, Bob proposed, and we joyfully married soon after. Jessica, you're so fortunate, Bob often remarked, boasting about his status as the top salesperson at the company, popular among many. His confidence and charm initially captivated me, though I sometimes wondered about his need to flaunt it. Yet in those early days, I found it endearing. Love truly has a way of blinding us. I cherished my time with Bob, enjoying his company and the life we were building together. Although we hadn't yet started a family, I was content. However, a year into our marriage, an issue arose. Hey Jessica, when are you going to give me a grandchild? That was my mother-in-law, who had been pressing the matter ever since our wedding. Living just a short drive away, we visited them often for dinner, where I faced her persistent questioning month after month. We're still young, so we decided to enjoy our time together, I explained calmly. My mother-in-law sighed audibly, her disapproval palpable. You say you're young, but you'll be 30 soon. I'll give you a year to see how it goes. That should be enough time, right? You should start having babies soon, or it might become difficult for you. When I married into this family, I got pregnant right away. Besides, you're just idling at home, aren't you? Since my early days of freelancing from home, my mother-in-law never truly acknowledged my work as a legitimate job. This perception persisted even after I married Bob. Moreover, our decision to postpone having children was primarily driven by Bob's desire for more time together as a couple. No, that's not true. I work diligently from home. I've mentioned before that I earn almost as much as Bob, I defended. Are you sure Bob isn't just covering for you? It seems like you're just passing the time, she retorted. That's not fair. Bob, please say something, I pleaded, hoping for his support. Ha! Oh, Bob rarely spoke up in such situations. His usual stance was, there's no point arguing with Mom. She doesn't listen to what I say, so it's best to let her talk and not take it too seriously. Despite my distress, I wished he would show a bit more support. Instead, he lounged on the couch, absorbed in his phone, barely engaged in the conversation. Well, you can do as you please, but since you have plenty of time, you should fulfill your duties as a wife. If you don't have a baby within this year, I may have to ask you to leave, Bob, she asserted. What? I exclaimed. It's simple. Bob is our only child. We need a daughter-in-law who can provide an heir. My husband remained passive, offering no defense while I faced her criticism. I was seething with anger as we returned home. Why didn't you say anything back there? You're the one who keeps insisting we wait to have children. You need to stand up to your mother, I confronted him. I'm sorry, Mom's just old-fashioned. She's stuck on the idea that you should have a baby right after marriage. I understand that, but couldn't you at least speak up to her? Like I mentioned, Mom is stubborn. She won't budge no matter what I say. You know, Jess, sometimes it's best to just nod along and let it pass. But your mother said if I don't get pregnant this year, she'll force us to divorce. Don't worry about that. She's just bluffing. Hey, not because of what she said, but I've actually been thinking about starting a family with you. Why are you hesitant? I'm not against it. I just want more time for us alone. Once we have a baby, you'll be fully occupied with the baby and we won't have much time together, he explained, pulling me into a hug. I found his concern endearing, so I hugged him back. However, despite his assurances at home, he never stood up for me when we visited his parents. After that, his mother began calling me daily, incessantly asking if I was pregnant yet. I grew weary of this relentless pressure. I kept silent about it, not wanting to paint Bob in a negative light, but eventually I reached my breaking point. I finally disclosed to her that Bob wasn't ready for children yet, but she brushed it off. That's just because you're putting words in Bob's mouth. He would never say something like that, she insisted. That's not true. Bob himself expressed that he wants to wait. I also want a baby, I countered. Really? Bob, is that true? She demanded. No, that's not exactly what I meant. I mean, I do want us to enjoy some more time together, and Jessica's okay with that too. He stumbled through his response. I was taken aback by his words. While I agreed with Bob's desire to wait, his response made it sound like I had misled his mother about our intentions regarding starting a family. As expected, his mother shot me a disapproving look after hearing his uncertain answer. See, you agree too. Now please hurry up and have a baby. Don't keep us waiting. In the end, I bore the brunt of the blame. When I confronted Bob at home about his words, he said, I'll handle it better next time. But he never brought it up again. Lately, I've been feeling increasingly anxious, wondering why I have to endure this. But there was a reason behind Bob's reluctance to have children. The truth came to light on a particular day off. I was home alone as Bob had his monthly outing with friends. Initially lounging at home, I had planned to visit my in-laws later in the evening, already dreading the inevitable nagging from my mother-in-law. With Bob absent, I took the opportunity to clear my mind with a solo shopping trip. Afterward, I decided to relax at a cafe with a terrace. It was there that I witnessed something unbelievable. Bob was seated with an unfamiliar woman and a baby. I quickly hid to avoid being seen. They appeared to be engaged in a pleasant conversation, and suddenly, Bob gently comforted the baby with a smile. I couldn't comprehend what was unfolding before me. My mind went blank as I continued to watch. Bob had claimed he was out with friends, but who was this woman? He had introduced me to all his friends since we married, and I had never met her. Then, to my surprise, Bob kissed the baby on the cheek. Seeing Bob affectionately dote on an unfamiliar baby, despite his insistence on not wanting children with me, deeply wounded me. Thoughts raced through my mind. Did he reject having children because he didn't truly love me? Tears blurred my vision as my heart clenched with the possibility of betrayal. Could Bob be cheating on me? I snapped a photo of them, capturing their apparent happiness, intending to confront Bob later. Just as I prepared to leave, Bob handed a white envelope to the woman and the baby, ready to depart. To avoid facing him directly, I hurried back home. 15 minutes later, Bob returned. I wasted no time in confronting him. You were out with friends, right? I questioned sharply. Yeah, I was. Why are you acting weird as soon as I get home? Bob replied defensively. Is this woman also a friend? I thrust the photo in front of him. Bob's expression paled instantly. How did you get this photo? He stammered, clearly caught off guard. I happened to come across you guys when I was out. Can you explain what's going on? Are you cheating? I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger. No, I'm not cheating, Bob quickly replied. Then what is it? And why did you give her a white envelope at the end? What's that all about? I pressed on, needing answers to make sense of the scene I had witnessed. Bob hesitated, his guilt evident in his expression as he began to explain reluctantly. Well, I meant to tell you eventually, but you know I was quite popular before I met you. I had a few flings and one of those women got pregnant. I was stunned into silence by Bob's revelation. This was the first time I was hearing this story, and it shattered my understanding of our relationship. I had been unaware of this situation even after we married. Apparently, by the time I found out, she was already 7 months pregnant, and it was too late for her to consider an abortion. I regretted ignoring her calls all this time. She didn't want to marry me, she just wanted me to acknowledge our child. Out of concern for the child growing up without a father, I agreed to acknowledge our child. We agreed that I would visit once a month. She's also struggling financially, so I've been helping her out with money. My world turned hazy as my husband's words sank in, and I sank to my knees. Jessica, are you all right? Bob rushed to my side, but I recoiled from his touch. Just hold on, something doesn't add up here. She was 7 months pregnant around the time we got married. Does that mean you were involved with her while we were dating? I demanded, my voice trembling with disbelief and hurt. I already told you, it's not like that. I cut things off completely once I started dating you, Bob insisted. But we were already seeing each other, weren't we? I countered. We were, but we hadn't officially committed yet. Exactly. I can't wrap my head around this. You were pursuing a relationship with me, yet you were involved with someone else, I exclaimed, struggling to process the betrayal. Jessica, I wasn't certain about us at that point. I felt like I didn't have a choice, okay? I never expected her to get pregnant, Bob explained, his voice pleading. But you were still putting yourself in situations where she could get pregnant, weren't you? I pressed, tears welling in my eyes. Well, my husband suddenly faltered. I couldn't believe the irresponsibility my husband was showing. It infuriated me even more that he had kept silent about this for an entire year after our marriage. Could it be? Did you refuse to have a child with me because you already had one? I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of disbelief and anger. My husband flinched at my words and then let out a bitter laugh. No, I plan to have children with you eventually, but like I mentioned earlier, I've been providing financial support to her every month. If we had a baby, I don't know how you would manage work-wise. Financially, it would be quite tough, so I thought I'd wait until I was a bit more stable before having a child with you. I was left dumbfounded by my husband's explanation more than I was angry. You need to tell your mother about this, I said firmly. What? Bob exclaimed, clearly taken aback. Isn't it obvious? She's always pressuring me about having children, and you act like you don't know or speak as if I'm the one who doesn't want children. No, I can't possibly tell my parents. They wouldn't understand why I have a child with another woman while I'm married to you. Isn't that just selfish? So, I've had to go along with your selfishness and bear the brunt of it. What are you saying? Are you saying you don't enjoy being with my family? I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I shouldn't be blamed for something that's not my fault. I'm not saying I don't like my mother-in-law. Why are you acting like this? I've been apologizing, haven't I? And yet you're still complaining. Jessica, you're lucky to be married to someone as successful as me, and you're complaining just because I have a child. It's not a trivial matter. That's enough. There's no point in talking to you anymore. I need to think about my future, so I'm going back to my parents' house for a while. Excuse me, what is this all about? How can you even think like that? Do you expect me to accept everything just because I'm your wife? I was stunned by my husband's words. How could he believe that being his wife meant I had to easily accept something as significant as the existence of a child he had kept hidden? I was also furious that he hadn't disclosed this to his parents and had instead portrayed me as the problem in front of my mother-in-law. Do you honestly believe being a wife means unquestioningly accepting everything? Regardless, I'm going back to my parents' house. Perhaps you should take some time to reflect while I'm away. As I spoke and began to rise, he swiftly stood up, retrieved something from our bedroom, and hurled it towards me. If that's how you feel, then don't bother coming back. If you can't accept all of me, you're not my wife. Here are the divorce papers. They're already filled out. Take them and leave immediately. Yes, my husband had thrown divorce papers at me. You've already filled them out? What does this mean? I could understand if you were suggesting divorce, but having them ready beforehand. Did you plan this? I couldn't believe it, and I asked him. His response was a scornful laugh. You never know what life will throw at you, so it's best to be prepared for anything, right? I mean, I liked your face, but if you can't accept all of me, then I don't need you anymore. Fortunately, there are plenty of women who want to marry a guy like me. I just need to choose a good one from among them. In other words, I have plenty of options for a wife. His words ignited a fire within me. I needed time to process everything, especially the bombshell about his hidden child, yet here he was implying I was replaceable. It was infuriating beyond belief. Gripping the divorce papers tightly, I shot him a glare. I never imagined you could stoop so low. Fine, I'll grant your wish and divorce you. I'll pack my things when you're not around. We probably won't see each other again. Goodbye. With that, I stormed out of the house, swiftly filled out the divorce papers, and submitted them to City Hall. But simply divorcing him wasn't enough. Once back at my parents' house, I recounted everything to my father. The following day, I took a day off work to gather my belongings. Though I mourned the shattered dreams of a happy marriage, I also felt relieved to have severed ties before investing more years with such a man. Wiping away my tears, I resolved to move forward. Just as I finished packing and the delivery service arrived to collect my belongings, my ex-husband called. Hello, Jessica. I was wrong. Forgive me. My ex-husband's voice on the phone was filled with desperation as soon as I answered. I couldn't help but smirk. Forgive you? After everything? Weren't you the one who initiated the divorce? I merely followed through on your decision, I retorted coolly. No, that was a mistake. I regret it deeply. You haven't submitted the divorce papers yet, have you? He pleaded. Of course I did. You handed them to me yourself, I replied, incredulous. What? Please, let's get married again. I can't live without you, Jessica. I almost chuckled at his feeble attempt. It seemed my conversation with my father had left my ex-husband in a tough spot, and rightfully so. My father held a significant position at a major client of my ex-husband's company, a fact my ex seemed to have overlooked in his haste to divorce me. I took satisfaction in knowing I had caused him some discomfort. Did you lose the contract with my father's company? That's unfortunate, especially for the ace of the sales department. It will be interesting to see how you handle this situation, I remarked casually. No, that's why I want to start over with you. There are plenty of replacements for me out there, right? You should try to find one. With that, I ended the call and allowed myself a broad smile. As I later learned from my father, my ex-husband had been demoted due to his role in losing the major client's contract. It was better than being fired, but his reputation within the company had taken a significant hit. After revealing the truth about his illegitimate child to my in-laws, they initially sought to reconcile him with the child's mother. However, due to her financial situation, they declined to pursue the remarriage, prompting my ex-husband to reach out to me again. Naturally, I refused. Who would willingly return to such a toxic environment? In contrast, life after divorce had treated me well. I moved back to my parents' home, focused on my career, and recently secured a significant contract with a major client. My work was flourishing, and while I kept an open heart for the possibility of meeting someone new in the future, for now, I was content focusing on my professional success.
I smoothed my dress and took a deep breath, plastering on a smile as I opened the front door. Catherine, what a surprise, I said, my voice sickly sweet. We weren't expecting you today. My mother-in-law breezed past me, her perfume leaving a cloying trail. Oh, Kelsey, dear, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by. Where's my Gregory? Before I could answer, my husband appeared from his study, grinning. Mom, What brings you here?" I retreated to the kitchen, gripping the counter as their voices drifted in. Everything had been perfect this morning. Gregory and I sharing coffee, our daughter Emma chattering about her upcoming school play. Now, with Catherine's unexpected arrival, tension crackled through the air. "Kelsey?" Gregory called. "Could you bring us some tea?" Gritting my teeth, I prepared a tray and returned to the living room. Catherine was perched on the edge of the sofa, rifling through her oversized purse. "Ah, there it is," she said triumphantly, pulling out a small velvet box. "Gregory, darling, I found this while cleaning out the attic. I thought Kelsey might like to have it." My husband took the box, opening it carefully. His brow furrowed. "Mom, this isn't ours. Where did you get this?" Catherine waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, it's been in that old trunk for years. I'm not sure where it came from originally." Curiosity got the better of me. "May I see it?" Gregory handed me the box, and I nearly dropped it when I saw its contents. A delicate gold locket nestled on faded velvet, its surface etched with a familiar pattern of intertwined roses. This was my mother's," I whispered, my fingers trembling as I touched the cool metal. Catherine's eyes gleamed. "Was it now? How fascinating." I looked up sharply. "How did you get this? My mother's been gone for years." "As I said, dear, I'm not sure where it came from, and perhaps it was mixed in with some old things." Gregory placed a hand on my arm. "Kels, are you okay? You look pale." I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of memories threatening to overwhelm me. "I'm fine. I need some air." As I stood, Catherine's voice stopped me. "Kelsey, don't you want to open it? There might be a picture inside." My heart raced. I hadn't seen my mother's face in over 2 decades. With shaking hands, I pried open the locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman with my eyes and smile, holding a baby. "That's you, isn't it?" Catherine asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "My, how alike you two look." I snapped the locket shut. "I need to lie down. Gregory, could you see your mother out?" Without waiting for a response, I fled upstairs, collapsing on our bed. The locket pressed against my palm, its weight far heavier than its size suggested. How had Catherine gotten her hands on this? And why now, after all these years? The question swirled in my mind, along with long-buried memories of my mother. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Kels?" Gregory's voice came through the door. "Mom's gone. Can I come in?" I sat up, hastily wiping my eyes. "Yeah, come in." He sat beside me, his face etched with worry. "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I don't understand how your mother ended up with this. It doesn't make sense." Gregory sighed. "I don't know either, but we'll figure it out, okay?" As he pulled me into a hug, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Catherine's unexpected visit and the mysterious appearance of my mother's locket felt like the first tremors before an earthquake. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a storm that would shake the very foundations of our family. The locket lay heavy in my hand as I stared at the phone, debating whether to call my aunt. If anyone knew about my mother's past, it would be her sister. But before I could decide, the doorbell rang. I groaned, already knowing who it was. Sure enough, Catherine's voice floated up from downstairs, followed by Gregory's warm welcome. This was the 3rd time this week she'd dropped by. Steeling myself, I headed down. Catherine beamed at me, her eyes glinting. "Kelsey, dear, I brought some old photo albums I thought you might like to see." My stomach churned. "That's thoughtful of you, Catherine." Gregory shot me a pleading look. "Mom's been going through boxes in the attic. Lots of memories, right, Mom?" I bit back a retort. Of course she had. "How nice," I managed. Catherine settled on the couch, patting the spot beside her. "Come, Kelsey, let's take a trip down memory lane." Reluctantly, I sat. Catherine flipped open an album, pointing to a faded photograph. "Look, it's me at your age. Don't you see the resemblance to your mother?" I stiffened. "I wouldn't know. I haven't seen her in years." "Oh, that's right," Catherine cooed. Her sympathy as fake as her eyelashes. Such a shame, but perhaps these photos will help fill in some blanks. As she flipped through the album, my unease grew. How did she have so many pictures from my mother's youth? And why was she so eager to share them now? "Catherine," I said, my voice tight, "how quickly did you come by these?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know how it is. Things get mixed up over the years." Gregory cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe we should." "Oh," Catherine exclaimed, cutting him off. I almost forgot. I brought something else for you, Kelsey. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a small, ornate box. My breath caught. It was identical to the one that had held my mother's locket. Where did you get that? I demanded. Catherine's smile never wavered. It was with the other things. I thought you might like to have it. I snatched the box, my hands shaking as I opened it. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet, one I remembered my mother wearing when I was a child. This was hers, I whispered. Was it? Catherine's eyes widened in mock surprise. How extraordinary. I turned to Gregory, my voice rising. Did you know about this? He held up his hands. Kels, I swear I had no idea. Catherine patted my knee. Now, dear, no need to get upset. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Then explain it, I snapped. How do you have my mother's things? The room fell silent. Catherine's smile finally faltered, but before she could respond, Emma burst through the front door. Mom! Dad! Guess what? Our daughter froze, sensing the tension. What's going on? Gregory jumped up. Nothing, sweetie. Why don't we go get a snack? As they left, Catherine leaned in close. Kelsey, dear, I know this must be difficult for you, but don't you think it's time you learn the truth about your mother? My heart pounded. What are you talking about? She patted my hand. All in good time. For now, why don't I come by tomorrow? We can have a nice long chat, just the two of us. Before I could protest, she was gathering her things. Gregory, she called. I'm heading out. See you tomorrow, Kelsey. The door closed behind her, leaving me stunned and clutching my mother's bracelet. What game was Catherine playing? And more importantly, what did she know about my mother that I didn't? As Gregory and Emma's laughter drifted in from the kitchen, I made a decision. Tomorrow I'd get answers, whether Catherine wanted to give them or not. I paced the living room, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Catherine was due any minute, and I was determined to get answers. The sound of a key in the lock made me freeze. Kelsey? Catherine's sing-song voice called out. I'm here, dear. I spun around. How did you get in? She dangled a key, smiling. Oh, Gregory gave me a spare. For emergencies, you know. My blood boiled. This isn't an emergency, Catherine, and you can't just walk into our home whenever you please. She waved dismissively. Don't be silly. We're family. I took a deep breath. Catherine, we need to talk about boundaries, and about my mother. Her eyes glittered. Of course, dear. That's why I'm here. We sat, the air thick with tension. Catherine pulled out another photo album. I found more pictures. Your mother was quite the beauty. I gritted my teeth. How do you have these? You didn't even know my mother. Catherine's smile turned predatory. Oh, but I did. We were close. My heart raced. What do you mean, close? She leaned in. Your mother and I shared a lot, Kelsey, including Gregory's father. The room spun. That's impossible. You're lying. Am I? She pulled out a letter. Read it yourself. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. My mother's handwriting stared back at me, detailing a torrid affair with Catherine's husband. No, I whispered. This can't be true. Catherine's voice dripped with false sympathy. I'm afraid it is. Your mother was quite the homewrecker. Rage surged through me. Get out. Now. She stood, clutching her purse. Think about what I've told you, Kelsey. There's so much more you don't know. As soon as she left, I called Gregory. We need to talk. Now. An hour later, we sat at the kitchen table, the letter between us. Did you know about this? I demanded. Gregory's face was pale. No, I swear. I had no idea. Then why give her a key to our house? Why let her invade our lives like this? He ran a hand through his hair. She's my mother, Kels. I thought she was just trying to connect with you. I slammed my hand on the table. Connect? She's manipulating us, Gregory. Can't you see that? Maybe she just wants to help you understand your past, he said weakly. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. My past is none of her business, and if you won't set boundaries with her, I will. Gregory reached for me. Kelsey, wait. But I was already halfway up the stairs. I slammed our bedroom door, my mind reeling. How much of what Catherine said was true, and how much was carefully crafted manipulation? I pulled out my phone, scrolling to my aunt's number. It was time to get some real answers. Aunt Sarah? It's Kelsey. We need to talk about Mom. Her voice was wary. What brought this on? I took a deep breath. Catherine, Gregory's mother. She has Mom's things, photos I've never seen, and a letter about an affair. Silence stretched across the line. Finally, Aunt Sarah sighed. Oh, Kelsey? I'd hoped you'd never have to know about all that. My heart sank. So it's true? Some of it, she said carefully, but I guarantee Catherine isn't telling you everything. There's more to the story. A knock at the door interrupted us. Kelsey? Gregory called. Mom's here again. She says she has more to tell us. I closed my eyes, dread settling in my stomach. I have to go, Aunt Sarah, but this isn't over. As I hung up, I steeled myself for another confrontation. Whatever game Catherine was playing, I was determined to win. For my family's sake and for the truth about my mother. I stormed downstairs, my anger fueling each step. Catherine sat in our living room, looking far too comfortable. Gregory hovered nearby, his face a mask of concern. What are you doing here? I demanded. Catherine smiled sweetly. I thought we could continue our chat, dear. There's so much more to discuss. I turned to Gregory. Did you let her in again? He shifted uncomfortably. Kels, she had the key. I couldn't exactly. The key you gave her, I interrupted. Without asking me. Catherine clucked her tongue. Now, let's not fight. I'm only here to help. I laughed bitterly. Help? You've done nothing but cause problems since you showed up with that locket. Kelsey, Gregory started, but I held up a hand. No, I'm done. I marched to the front door and flung it open. Catherine, get out, now. She didn't move. Don't you want to know the truth about your mother? Not from you, I spat. Catherine sighed dramatically. Very well, but remember, I tried to do this the easy way. She stood, reaching into her purse. Perhaps these will change your mind. She tossed a stack of photographs onto the coffee table. I froze, recognizing my mother's face among them. But the images, they couldn't be real. What is this? I whispered, picking up a photo of my mother in a compromising position with a man I didn't recognize. Catherine's voice dripped with false sympathy. Your mother had quite a colorful past, dear. These are just the tip of the iceberg. My hands shook. Where did you get these? Oh, I have my sources, she said airily. The question is, what will you do with this information? I looked at Gregory, who seemed as shocked as I felt. Did you know about this? He shook his head vehemently. Kels, I swear I had no idea. Suddenly, it all became too much. The invasion of privacy, the manipulation, the secrets. I couldn't take it anymore. That's it, I said, my voice deadly calm. I'm calling the police. Catherine's eyes widened. Now, Kelsey, let's not be hasty. But I was already dialing. Gregory tried to intervene, but I pushed past him. Hello? Yes, I need to report an intruder in my home. Catherine stood, her facade cracking. You wouldn't dare. I met her gaze steadily. Watch me. The next hour was a blur. Police arrived, questions were asked, and Catherine's smug demeanor finally crumbled. To my surprise, she admitted to entering our home without permission and to possessing items that didn't belong to her. As the officers led her away, she turned to me. This isn't over, Kelsey. You'll regret this. The door closed behind her, leaving Gregory and me in stunned silence. I can't believe you did that, he finally said. I rounded on him. I can't believe you've been enabling her this whole time. What were you thinking, Gregory? He ran a hand through his hair. She's my mother, Kels. I thought. I don't know what I thought. Well, start thinking now, I said, because this ends today. No more keys, no more surprise visits, no more manipulations. Do you understand? Gregory nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I should have set boundaries earlier. I sighed, the fight draining out of me. Yes, you should have, but it's done now. As I turned to go upstairs, Gregory caught my arm. What about the photos and everything else Catherine said about your mother? I paused, my heart heavy. I don't know, but I'm going to find out the truth without Catherine's interference. Climbing the stairs, I felt a mix of relief and trepidation. I'd taken back control, but at what cost? And what other secrets were lurking in my family's past? One thing was certain, this battle was far from over. But for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to face whatever came next, with or without Gregory by my side. The days following Catherine's arrest were eerily quiet. Gregory walked on eggshells around me, and I found myself jumping at every unexpected sound, half expecting Catherine to materialize in our living room again. One afternoon, as I sorted through the mail, a thick envelope caught my eye. No return address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were more photos of my mother, along with newspaper clippings I'd never seen before. A note in unfamiliar handwriting read, "The truth can't stay buried forever." I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. The clippings detailed a scandal from decades ago, my mother's name linked to a powerful businessman in a corruption case. How had I never known about this? The front door opened and Gregory called out, "Kels, you home?" I quickly shoved everything back into the envelope. "In here." He entered, his face tight with worry. "Mom's been released. She wants to talk." My stomach churned. Absolutely not. "Kelsey, please. She says she has important information about your mother." I stood, anger flaring. "More lies and manipulation, you mean? When will you stop defending her?" Gregory's shoulders slumped. "I'm not defending her. I think there's more to this story than we know." "You're right," I said, holding up the envelope. "There is, but I'm done letting Catherine control the narrative." His eyes widened. "What's that?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out without Catherine's interference." Just then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour if you want the whole truth. Come alone." My heart raced. Could it be my aunt, or was this another of Catherine's tricks? "I have to go," I said, grabbing my keys. Gregory caught my arm. "Kels, wait, where are you going?" I hesitated, then made a decision, to get answers, real ones this time. "Let me come with you," he pleaded. I shook my head. "No, I need to do this alone." As I drove to the park, my mind whirled with possibilities. Who had sent those photos? Who wanted to meet? And most importantly, what was the truth about my mother's past? I parked and scanned the area, my heart pounding. A figure sat on a bench near the pond, hunched and unrecognizable. Taking a deep breath, I approached. "Hello?" The person looked up and I gasped. It was my mother. "Kelsey," she said, her voice cracking. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." I stood frozen, 1,000 emotions warring inside me. "Mom? What? How?" She patted the bench beside her. "Sit, please. I owe you an explanation." Numbly, I sat. My mother, the woman I hadn't seen in over 2 decades, looked older, worn, but her eyes were the same. "I know Catherine's been causing trouble," she began. "I should have known she'd never let it go." "Let what go?" I asked, finding my voice. "Mom, what's going on?" She sighed heavily. "It's a long story, honey, but the short version is this. Catherine and I were once friends, close friends, until I discovered her husband's illegal activities." My head spun. "The businessman in the newspaper articles." Mom nodded. "You've seen those, then? Yes, that was Gregory's father. I tried to expose him, but Catherine, she turned it all around on me, made it look like I was the one involved." Tears filled her eyes. "I had to leave, Kelsey, to protect you. Catherine threatened to drag you into it if I didn't disappear." I sat in stunned silence, trying to process it all. But why now? Why is she bringing all this up again? Mom's face hardened. "Because the truth is about to come out, all of it, and Catherine's trying to control the narrative." She reached for my hand. "Kelsey, I need your help. Will you stand with me and finally bring this all to light?" I stared at her, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would change everything. My relationship with Gregory, my understanding of my past, my very identity, it all hung in the balance. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. "Tell me everything, Mom, from the beginning." As she began to speak, I knew there was no turning back. The battle for the truth had only just begun. I paced our living room, my mother's revelations echoing in my mind. The truth was more twisted than I could have imagined, and I knew confronting Gregory was inevitable. But before I could gather my thoughts, the front door burst open. Gregory rushed in, followed closely by Catherine. Their faces were flushed with excitement, a stark contrast to the dread pooling in my stomach. "Kelsey," Gregory exclaimed, "we have amazing news." I crossed my arms, steeling myself. "What is it?" Catherine beamed, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "We've found the perfect solution to all our problems, dear." Gregory nodded enthusiastically. "We bought a house, Kels, a fresh start for all of us." The world tilted on its axis. What? "It's beautiful," Catherine gushed. "Plenty of room for the whole family. We can all live together just like we should." I struggled to breathe. How did you pay for this?" Gregory's smile faltered slightly. "Well, we used our savings, and I borrowed from your account, just temporarily, of course." The room spun. "My account? Gregory, how could you?" Catherine waved dismissively. Now, Kelsey, don't be dramatic. It's for the best." Rage boiled inside me. "The best? You've been manipulating us from the start, and now this." Gregory reached for me, but I jerked away. "Kels, please. We did this for you, for us, to bring the family together." "Family?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you even know what that word means anymore?" Catherine's eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, young lady, after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I exploded. You've lied, schemed, and now stolen from me. I know the truth about you, Catherine, about what you did to my mother. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I turned to Gregory. Did you know about your father's crimes? About how your mother framed mine to cover it up? He stumbled back, shock etched across his features. Kels, what? Don't play dumb, I snapped. I met with my mother. I know everything. Catherine's mask of benevolence cracked. You ungrateful little... Enough, I shouted. I want you both out, now. Gregory's eyes filled with tears. Kelsey, please, we can work this out. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. No, we can't, not anymore. Catherine sneered. You can't kick us out, we own this house now. My blood ran cold. What? She produced a document with a flourish. It's all here, dear. The deed's in our names. You should really pay more attention to what you sign. I snatched the paper, scanning it in disbelief. There it was in black and white, my signature, transferring ownership of our home. This is forged, I whispered. Catherine smirked. Prove it. The room closed in around me. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, gone in an instant. Gregory reached for me again. Kels, I'm sorry. I recoiled from his touch. You thought what? That you could betray me like this and I'd just accept it? His face crumpled. I love you. I was trying to save our family. There is no family anymore, I said, my voice breaking. Not after this. I turned, grabbing my keys and phone. Catherine called after me, her voice sickly sweet. Where are you going, dear? This is your home, remember? I paused at the door, looking back at the wreckage of my life. No, I said quietly. It's not. As I stepped outside, the weight of everything crashed down on me. I was homeless, betrayed by the man I loved, and facing a battle I wasn't sure I could win. But as I drove away, one thought crystallized in my mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Catherine and Gregory had no idea what I was capable of when pushed to my limits, and they were about to find out. I sat in my lawyer's office, the divorce papers spread before me like a roadmap to a future I never imagined. My hands trembled as I reached for the pen. Are you sure about this, Kelsey? Sarah, my attorney and longtime friend, asked gently. I nodded, my jaw set. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Just as I was about to sign, my phone buzzed. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Kels, please, his voice cracked. Don't do this. We can work it out. Think of Emma. My heart clenched at the mention of our daughter. I am thinking of Emma. That's why I have to do this. Give me one more chance, he pleaded. Meet me at the new house. Let me explain everything. I closed my eyes, torn between anger and the lingering echoes of love. Fine, 1 hour. Sarah touched my arm as I stood. Be careful, Kelsey. Remember what's at stake. I drove to the address Gregory had texted, my emotions a storm of rage and heartache. The house loomed before me, a monument to betrayal. Gregory met me at the door, his face haggard. Thank you for coming. I brushed past him, entering a living room that screamed of Catherine's taste. Make it quick. He paced, running his hands through his hair. I know I messed up, but I did it for us, for our family. Family? I spat. You let your mother manipulate and steal from us. You betrayed everything we built together. I was trying to keep us together, he shouted, then deflated. Mom said, she said if we didn't do this you'd leave, that you were planning to take Emma and run. I stared at him, incredulous. And you believed her? I didn't know what to believe anymore, he whispered. Everything was falling apart. A noise from upstairs made me freeze. Who else is here? Gregory's eyes widened. No one, I swear. But footsteps on the stairs betrayed his lie. Catherine appeared, Emma clinging to her hand. Mommy, Emma cried, running to me. I scooped her up, fury blazing through me. What is this? Catherine smiled, saccharine sweet. We thought Emma should see her new home. Isn't it lovely, dear? You had no right, I hissed, clutching Emma tighter. Oh, but we do, Catherine purred, producing a document. You see, we filed for emergency custody, thought, given your unstable behavior lately. The world tilted beneath my feet. You what? Gregory stepped forward, his face pale. Mom, we agreed we wouldn't. Hush, darling, Catherine cut him off. It's for the best. I set Emma down, my voice low and dangerous. Emma, sweetheart, go play in the other room for a minute. Once she was gone, I rounded on them. You think you can take my daughter? After everything you've done? Catherine's mask slipped, revealing the venom beneath. We can and we will. You're outnumbered, Kelsey. It's time to accept defeat. Something snapped inside me. Years of manipulation, lies, and betrayal crystallized into a single burning point of rage. No, I said, my voice steady. I won't let you destroy my life or my daughter's. This ends now. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over a number. I have proof, Catherine, of everything. Your husband's crimes, your cover-up, the forged documents. One call, and it all comes crashing down. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. Try me, I challenged, my heart pounding. The room crackled with tension. Gregory looked between us, lost and confused. Catherine's eyes darted, calculating. In that moment I knew. This was it. The point of no return. Whatever happened next would change everything forever. My finger descended toward the call button, and the world held its breath. My finger hovered over the call button, the room thick with tension. Catherine's eyes darted between my face and the phone, her mask of control cracking. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. I met her gaze steadily. Try me. Gregory stepped forward, his face pale. Kelsey, what's going on? What proof? I took a deep breath. Your father's crimes, Greg, the corruption, the cover-up, everything. His eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. Dad was a criminal, I finished. And your mother helped hide it all. Catherine lunged for my phone, but I was quicker. It's over, Catherine. I've already sent copies to my lawyer. She stumbled back, her face ashen. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled up a series of emails on my phone screen. These are from my mother, detailing everything she uncovered before you forced her into hiding. Gregory sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. All this time, you knew? I softened slightly. I only found out recently, when I met with my mother. Catherine's laugh was brittle. So what? It's your word against ours. Who do you think they'll believe? They'll believe the evidence, I said firmly. Bank records, witness statements, everything my mother collected before you threatened her. The fight seemed to drain out of Catherine. She looked suddenly old, defeated. What do you want? I straightened my shoulders. I want my life back, my home, my savings, and full custody of Emma. You can't, Catherine began, but Gregory cut her off. Enough, Mom, he said quietly. It's over. He turned to me, his eyes filled with regret. Kels, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. I nodded, my heart aching despite everything. I know. Catherine slumped in a chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. What happens now? Now, I said, you both sign these papers. I pulled out the documents I'd brought from my lawyer's office. Returning full ownership of our house to me, relinquishing any claim to my savings, and agreeing to my terms for custody. Gregory signed without hesitation. Catherine's hand shook as she scrawled her name. As I gathered the papers, a small voice came from the doorway. Mommy, can we go home now? Emma stood there, her eyes wide and confused. I scooped her up, holding her close. Yes, baby, we're going home. I turned to Gregory and Catherine one last time. I won't press charges for Emma's sake, but if you ever try to come between me and my daughter again, I won't hesitate. Gregory nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. I'm sorry, Kels, for everything. As I walked out of that house, Emma in my arms, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I could breathe freely. Weeks later, I sat on our porch, my porch, watching Emma play in the yard. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Proud of you, sweetheart? Dinner next week? I smiled, typing back a quick yes. We were rebuilding our relationship, slowly but surely. The sound of a car pulling up made me tense, but it was just Sarah, my lawyer and friend. She joined me on the porch, grinning. Got the final paperwork today, she said. It's all official, the house, the savings, everything. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It's really over. Sarah squeezed my hand. You did it, Kels. You stood up for yourself and won. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the yard, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The past months had been a battle, but I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever. I thought of all the women like me, fighting their own battles against manipulation and deceit. I hope my story might give them courage, show them that it's never too late to reclaim your life and your dignity. Emma's laughter floated across the yard, and I smiled. We had a bright future ahead of us, free from shadows and secrets, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. Megan, it's strange, isn't it? Everyone kept saying how perfect our life is, yet here I am, questioning everything about it. I said, staring blankly at the dinner table, absent-mindedly fidgeting with my wedding ring. David looked up from his phone, a hint of irritation in his eyes. "Megan, not tonight. I'm exhausted. Can we just have one peaceful dinner?" I nodded, biting my tongue. Another evening, another conversation cut short. This had become our routine, silences filled with unspoken emotions. As I cleared the table, my phone buzzed. "Mrs. Carter, there's been an accident. Your husband and his passenger are in critical condition," the voice on the other end informed. The plate slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. "What? Where? How bad is it?" My voice was frantic. "Calm down. They're being taken to Mercy General. Come quickly," the caller said before hanging up abruptly. I grabbed my coat and rushed out, my mind racing. In the emergency room, I was met by a police officer. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked, his face somber. "Your husband and his passenger were involved in a car accident. They're both in surgery." "His passenger?" I whispered, trying to process. "Who was with him?" The officer hesitated. "I believe her name is Samantha Foster." My heart sank. Samantha, my sister? What were they doing together? I spotted my mom, June, entering the waiting room. "Megan, what's happening?" "I heard about the accident. Samantha. Where is she?" "Mom, I don't know. They told me she's in surgery with David," I said, barely holding back my tears. 2 hours later, a doctor approached us. "Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Foster, your husband and daughter made it through surgery. They'll live, but their conditions are serious. It'll be a long road to recovery." Relief mixed with confusion filled me. Why was Samantha in David's car? I looked at my mom, searching for answers, but she looked as puzzled as I felt. Days turned into a blur. Between hospital visits and sleepless nights, questions gnawed at me, but I pushed them aside, focusing on David's and Samantha's recovery. Though frail, David managed to speak. "Megan, it wasn't my fault. You have to believe me." I nodded, but the doubt lingered. Why were they together that day? One evening, as I sat beside David's bed, Samantha's voice whispered from her room. "I'm sorry, Megan. I never meant for this to happen." "Sorry for what? What were you doing with David?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. Samantha averted her eyes. "Helping with the apartment. You had to work, remember?" "That doesn't explain everything, Samantha," I said, feeling my frustration bubble over. Before she could answer, the officer from earlier approached. "Mrs. Carter, we need to talk. It seems there's more to the accident. We've found evidence suggesting tampering with your car's brakes." "How is tampering?" My knees felt weak. Who would do such a thing? "We're investigating, but it might be someone close to you," he said, looking directly at me. My mind raced. Who could it be? How could this happen to us? In that moment, I realized the illusion of our perfect life had shattered, just like the plate that fell from my hand that night. The days ahead would test me in ways I never imagined. The day of our planned shopping trip with Samantha dawned earlier than expected. I was getting ready when my boss called. "Megan, I need you to come into the office. It's urgent," he said, his voice strained. I glanced at my watch. "But today is—" "I know, Megan. But it can't wait," he interrupted, sounding desperate. I sighed, feeling the pressure mount. I had promised Samantha this day. Running my fingers through my hair, I went to find David. "David, I'm so sorry, but I have to go into work. Can you help Samantha with the furniture shopping today?" I asked, feeling guilty. David's face softened despite the usual strain between us. "Sure, Megan, I can do that. Are you okay?" "Yeah, just stressed. Thanks, David. I'll be back as soon as I can." I hurried out, catching the first bus to the office. The day was a blur of meetings and emergencies, all while my mind kept drifting to Samantha and David. Late in the afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number flashed on the screen. I answered, my heart sinking immediately. "Mrs. Carter, I regret to inform you, I heard nothing else." My entire world flipped upside down. As the unknown caller continued speaking, I held on to the edge of my desk, feeling the room spin. I rushed out of the office and sped to the hospital, my thoughts racing almost as fast. The echoes of the previous night's revelations kept haunting me. In the waiting room, I saw the same police officer who had become a grim fixture in our lives. His presence hinted at how dire the situation was. "Officer, what's happening? Is it my husband and sister again?" I asked, breathless. "Yes, Mrs. Carter. Their conditions are still critical, but we have some suspicions regarding this incident too," his tone grave. "What do you mean?" My voice shook. "We think someone tampered with their car," he said, studying my reaction. "This couldn't be happening." "Sabotage again?" I glanced to see my mom, June, rushing in. "Megan, what's going on?" "Samantha and David." "Mom, it's bad. The police think someone tampered with their car," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother gasped, clutching my arm. "Who would do such a thing?" "That's what we need to find out," the officer said. "We need to investigate, but it's looking like someone close to you is involved." As we waited, my emotions whirled. David was supposed to help Samantha, but now they both lay fighting for their lives. In the sterile halls of the hospital, the doctor emerged again. "Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Foster, they'll make it through surgery, but their conditions remain serious. It'll be a hard recovery." Everything felt like a nightmare come to life. As I struggled to process this, a chilling thought crossed my mind. Who would do this, and why target David and Samantha? David was conscious again later, still weak but coherent. "Megan," he croaked, reaching out for my hand. "It wasn't my fault." I sat by his bed, trying to piece everything together. The same questions replayed. Why were they in the car together? Why did this keep happening? Then, like a shadow cutting through the dim light, another question loomed. Was someone deliberately trying to tear us apart? The pieces didn't fit, and the answers kept slipping through my fingers. The days ahead would reveal more than just the extent of their injuries. They would expose the darkest corners of our lives, corners I wasn't ready to face. I gripped the steering wheel, driving to the hospital with a white-knuckled intensity. The news of the accident played on repeat in my mind. David and Samantha. Why did this keep happening? The hospital loomed large as I pulled into the parking lot. I stumbled through the entrance, my breaths coming in shallow gasps. The familiar sterile smell hit me like a wave. I rushed to the receptionist. "David Carter and Samantha Foster, please. Where are they?" "They're on the 3rd floor, ICU," she responded, eyes filled with empathy. Racing to the elevator, I barely noticed the others around me. Every second felt like an eternity. As the doors opened on the 3rd floor, I spotted the police officer from earlier, waiting with a grim expression. "Mrs. Carter, let's talk," he said, leading me to a small, quiet room. "What happened?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Preliminary evidence suggests someone tampered with the brakes on your car," he began. "We're investigating, but we need to address some initial suspicions." I looked at him in disbelief. "Who could have done this?" "We don't know yet, but it might be someone very close to you," he said, holding my gaze. The room spun as I tried to comprehend his words. Someone close to me? Who would do such a thing? Just then the doctor entered. "Mrs. Carter, you and your mother can see them now, but they're still very weak. Please, just a few minutes." We followed him silently to the ICU. I walked in, feeling like a ghost. David lay motionless, tubes and machines everywhere. His eyes fluttered open as I approached. "Megan," he whispered, his voice strained. I'm sorry." "David, don't try to talk," I said, a lump in my throat. "We'll figure this out." I moved to Samantha's side, her face pale and battered. She slowly opened her eyes, looking at me with a flicker of guilt. "I'm so sorry, Megan. I never wanted this," she mumbled, tears welling up. "Why, Sam? Why were you with David?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Before she could reply, the officer stepped in. "Mrs. Carter, we have more questions for you. We suspect there might be something deeper going on." He led me out of the room as my mind raced with a flurry of questions. "What do you mean by something deeper?" I asked, trying to keep up. "We're looking at this from all angles. Right now, our focus is on who had access to your car and why they'd target both David and Samantha," he explained, his tone serious. I nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. Someone had it out for my family, and as the picture started to come into focus, I realized I needed to be strong to face whatever truths came our way. Back in the waiting area, June wrapped her arms around me. "Megan, we'll get through this. We have to." Her words offered a small glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. As I sat there, I knew the days ahead would be filled with difficult revelations and harder choices, but one thing was clear. I wouldn't stop until I uncovered the truth. And whoever was behind this, they'd pay for every bit of pain they caused. The hospital became my second home in the weeks that followed. David and Samantha were awake but far from okay. Their recoveries were slow, and with each day, our family splintered further. David's frustration grew, seeping into every interaction. One evening, as I entered his room, I found him seething. "Megan, this is unbearable," he snapped. "Why can't you do anything right? Get the nurses, now." I flinched at his harsh tone, but nodded and stepped out. While I sought the nurses, a knot tightened in my stomach. Returning with a nurse, David glared at me. "It took you long enough," he muttered. Embarrassed and hurt, I took a step back, letting the nurse do her job. Walking out, I heard Samantha calling for me. I headed into her room, already bracing for the stress. "Megan, can you help me with this bed adjustment? Why is everything so hard to reach?" she complained, sounding almost whiny. I adjusted the bed, trying to keep a steady hand. "There you go, better?" "Yeah, thanks. Just, don't you get tired of this?" she asked, her voice softer, almost reflective. I sighed, wiping a hand across my forehead. "It's exhausting, Sam, but it's what we have to do." She looked away, silent, and for a moment I thought through the shadows of her guilt. But I couldn't afford to delve into their thoughts. Actions mattered now. Moments later, June joined me in the hallway. She looked worn out, dark circles under her eyes. "Megan, dear, this is too much. You need rest." "I can't, Mom. They need me," I argued, though my body ached with fatigue. As I turned to leave, I caught a snippet of conversation that chilled me. "Damn it, Samantha, how could you trust anyone else to handle this mess?" David's voice accused from his room. "I thought we'd be smart enough to avoid this," Samantha retorted, her voice dripping with exasperation. Their words hung in the air as I stepped back, unnoticed. Everywhere I turned, betrayal seemed to lurk. Later that evening, the officer returned with an update. "Mrs. Carter, we confirmed that your car's brakes were tampered with. It appears meticulous." A lump formed in my throat. "Do you have any leads?" "We're following up on some information, but nothing concrete yet. It seems very personal," he added. I nodded, feeling the weight of new suspicion. Each discovery pushed me closer to an edge I couldn't ignore. Back in Samantha's room, I watched as she rested fitfully. Her condition was serious, and her needs were endless. But as I cared for her, the tension between us lingered just below the surface. David, on the other hand, became increasingly venomous. "Megan, this is your fault, isn't it?" he'd accuse, his bitterness slicing through the thin air of the hospital room. "You always wanted something more. Well, look where that got us." I clenched my jaw, swallowing down my retorts. Silence became my shield. As days dragged on, June was caught between us, her own exhaustion growing. The strain in David and Samantha's behavior took a toll on her, and it showed. In the quiet moments, when the hospital felt heavy with unspoken words, I knew I had to stay resilient. This darkness, whatever it held, would not swallow me whole. The truth, however twisted, was my next goal, and in that journey, my quiet determination was my solitary companion. June sat next to me in the waiting room, her face pale from the persistent strain. "Mom, you should go home. Rest," I said, squeezing her hand. She shook her head. "No, Megan, I need to be here for both of you." A police officer approached, his expression serious. "Mrs. Carter, can we speak privately?" I nodded and followed him to a small room. The door closed behind us, magnifying the silence. "We've found more evidence," he began, eyes locking onto mine. "The brake tampering points to someone close to you. Further investigation led us to Maxine Lewis. Do you know her?" My heart skipped a beat. "Maxine? No, I don't think so." "She has a strong vendetta against David," he explained. "It seems they have a history." I had never heard of her before, but my gut twisted. What kind of history? "We're still piecing it together, but she's someone you should be aware of," he said, his tone firm. "We'll keep you updated." Back in David's room, I tried to mask my turmoil. He lay there, eyes closed, looking fragile. When his eyes opened, the familiar coldness was there. "David, do you know a Maxine Lewis?" I asked, my voice steady. He blinked, showing confusion for the first time. "Maxine? Why are you asking about her?" "She's connected to the brake tampering," I said, watching his reaction closely. David's face darkened. "Don't believe everything they say. Megan, she's just a liar trying to ruin me." A chilling realization set in. His words sounded defensive rather than innocent. I took a step back, needing to breathe. Later, as I moved through the hospital, I saw Samantha's demands growing. "Mom, I need this. I need that," she whined, pushing June to exhaustion. With June physically drained and emotionally wrecked, the hospital turned into a battleground. I saw the toll it took on her, breaking my heart. One evening, as I huddled in the courtyard for a moment of solitude, I heard hushed voices. Peeking through the window, I saw David on the phone. "You need to fix this, Samantha. We can't let Megan find out." David's voice was stern. Samantha replied, her voice shaky, "I thought we covered all our tracks. How did they find Maxine?" David glanced around, then hissed, "She's relentless. We need to deal with her before she exposes everything." Their words sent a shiver down my spine. My suspicions solidified into a horrifying reality. They were in on something deep, something dark. Determined to get the truth, I confronted Samantha the next morning. "Sam, what's going on between you and David?" I demanded. Her eyes widened, fear and guilt mingling. "Megan, you don't understand. Help me understand then," I said, my voice cracking but forceful. Before she could respond, the same officer reappeared. "Mrs. Carter, we've confirmed some findings. Maxine Lewis has a significant grievance with your husband related to financial deceit and personal betrayal." I stood there, my world crumbling as the pieces came together. David and Samantha had lies stretching far and wide, and now Maxine's quest for revenge had entwined us all. Leaving the hospital that night, my resolve hardened. The darkness needed to come to light. But first, I'd have to face both David and Samantha, expose their deceit, and deliver justice for everyone hurt along the way. The truth was no longer hiding, it was marching right towards us. With every step, I knew I was getting closer to unraveling the entire conspiracy, and I swore to myself nobody would walk away unscathed once the truth surfaced. The days passed in a blur, each one blending into the next. My focus sharpened. I had to confront David and Samantha. The lies needed to end. One morning, I stood outside David's hospital room, summoning the courage to go in. When I finally walked in, his eyes flicked up from his phone. "Megan, what now?" he asked, annoyance clear in his voice. "I know about Maxine. I know about the tampered brakes. You need to tell me everything," I demanded, crossing my arms. David's expression shifted, a sneer curling his lips. "You think you know everything, huh? You know nothing, Megan." "No more lies, David. Why was Samantha with you?" I pressed, feeling my anger surge. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Samantha and I are closer than you think. We've been together behind your back for months." No, I felt the ground give way beneath me. "What?" I whispered, barely able to breathe. David's eyes gleamed with malice. "Yeah, Megan. While you were busy playing the doting wife, Samantha and I were planning a future, one that didn't involve you." My heart pounded in my chest. "You used me?" "Of course," David said, his voice dripping with contempt. "We needed your money, your connections. It was all a game." With shaking hands, I left his room and stumbled into Samantha's. She looked up, guilt and fear etched into her face. "Megan, she started, but I cut her off. "Spare me the excuses, Sam. I know. David told me everything." She broke down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I shouted, rage boiling over. "You betrayed me, sabotaged my life." Samantha sobbed, unable to meet my eyes. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. We just wanted to push you out of the way, take control." I clenched my fists, shaking with anger. "You wanted to destroy me. Why? Because you were jealous? Because you and David wanted my life?" Suddenly a nurse walked in, startled by the intensity in the room. "Is everything okay here?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "No, it's not, but it will be." I left the room, resolved to take action. The first step was meeting with the officer. "Mrs. Carter, we have more to show you," he said, leading me to a small office. The screen flickered to life, showing surveillance footage from my car. There were David and Samantha, laughing, touching. The evidence was undeniable. Tears filled my eyes as I watched my trust shatter. "Megan," the officer's voice was gentle, "we can pursue charges. Their manipulation of your finances, the attempted murder, it's all documented." Stunned, I nodded. "Do what you need to do." Later, at home, I found a message from Maxine. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "David destroyed my life. I needed him to pay. I never meant for you to be hurt, Megan." Maxine's pain mirrored my own, a twisted kinship formed through betrayal. Her story, one of deceit and revenge, echoed in mine. The next day, I returned to the hospital with divorce papers. David's eyes widened when he saw them. "Megan, wait. We can work this out," he pleaded, a hint of desperation in his voice. "It's over, David," I said coldly, dropping the papers on his bed. "You took everything from me. Now you'll pay." Walking away, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. Samantha's screams echoed behind me, but I didn't turn back. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was stronger now. The truth, bitter and painful, had set me free. And with that freedom came the resolve to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of betrayal. David tried to stop me as I walked out of his hospital room, but I did not turn back. His pleas faded as I moved down the corridor, my steps growing firmer with each stride. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. The next few days were a whirlwind. News of David's and Samantha's affair spread like wildfire. Friends, colleagues, and even family members reached out, shocked and judgmental. I let them talk, their words bouncing off my new armor. One afternoon, I walked into a cafe for a meeting with the police officer. The place was buzzing, but I felt a strange calm wash over me. "Mrs. Carter," the officer greeted with a nod. "We have finalized the charges against David and Samantha. They'll be facing a lengthy legal battle." "Good," I replied, my voice steady. "I want justice, not just for me, but for everyone they hurt." He slid a document across the table. "This outlines their financial manipulations and the evidence we've gathered. Their social standing is already in ruins." I scanned the paper, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. It was all there in black and white, every deceitful act laid bare. Leaving the cafe, I bumped into Maxine. Her face was a mask of regret. "Megan," she began softly, "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted David to feel the pain he caused me." I studied her, seeing the echoes of my own pain. "Maxine, you took extreme measures, but I understand why," I said, surprising myself with the empathy in my voice. "We both suffered because of him." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I'm sorry for everything." With a heavy heart, I walked away, my mind set on the next step. My journey was far from over. The legal proceedings against David and Samantha progressed quickly. Each court appearance was another blow to their fabricated lives. Their faces, once haughty and assured, now looked haunted. One morning, I stood outside the courthouse, clutching my mother's hand. June looked weary but resolute. "Megan, I'm so proud of you. You've been so strong." I smiled faintly. I had to be, for both of us. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with whispered conversations. When David and Samantha entered, all eyes turned to them. They looked diminished, mere shadows of their former selves. David's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty." The judge's gaze was stern. "The evidence is overwhelming. I hope you're prepared for the consequences of your actions." Samantha's lawyer followed suit, but her pleas sounded even more hollow. Their downfall was inevitable and thoroughly deserved. After the hearings, I approached David. For the last time, I stared into the eyes of the man I had once loved. "This is the end, David. You've lost everything." His eyes flared with anger. "You think you've won, Megan? You're as foolish as ever." I shook my head, feeling nothing but pity. "No, David, I'm no longer your victim. Goodbye." Later, I visited Samantha in her care facility. She was a shell of her former self, her demanding nature now subdued by the cold reality of her situation. "Why, Samantha?" I asked. Tears streamed down her face. "I was jealous, insecure. David filled my head with lies. I betrayed you, and now I'm paying for it." I sighed deeply, the finality of her words sinking in. "You've caused so much pain, Sam, but I hope you find peace someday." Stepping outside, I felt a strange sense of release. The storm had passed, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I was scarred, but stronger. The world outside the courthouse was bright, filled with possibilities. As I walked away, I knew the journey ahead would be about healing and rediscovering myself, free from the shadows of betrayal. The future was mine to shape, and with each step, I embraced the promise of a new beginning. 2 years later, the hospital memories felt like a distant nightmare. Life had moved forward, carrying me with it. I stood in my office, stacks of paperwork before me, yet this time everything felt different. Lighter. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. "Hey, Megan, ready for lunch?" Henry's voice brought a smile to my face. Henry Thompson had walked into my life unexpectedly. We met at a professional event, his kind eyes and genuine smile a stark contrast to everything I had known before. "Yeah, let's go," I replied, grabbing my coat. As we walked to the cafe, Henry's hand gently brushed mine, a simple yet comforting gesture. During lunch, he looked at me with a mixture of pride and affection. "You've come so far, Megan. I'm amazed at your strength and grace." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread inside. "I couldn't have done it without your support, Henry." Our relationship was built on trust and mutual respect, the very things I thought I'd never find again. It reflected my personal growth and newfound independence. Life had its challenges, but I faced them head-on, with Henry by my side. Returning to my apartment that evening, I marveled at how much had changed. The walls now displayed art that I loved, and the spaces reflected my tastes, my choices. June was there, having tea on the balcony. Her presence was a constant reminder of enduring love. "Hey, Mom," I greeted, sitting beside her. She smiled, her eyes filled with contentment. "Megan, I've watched you rebuild your life from the ground up. I couldn't be prouder." "Thanks, Mom. That means a lot." My voice was soft, filled with genuine emotion. We chatted about everything and nothing, enjoying the silence that spoke volumes. The turbulence of the past had given way to stillness and healing. Later that night, as I prepared for bed, a sense of peace enveloped me. The scars from the betrayal remained, but they no longer defined me. They were a testament to my resilience, a reminder of the strength I had discovered within myself. The next morning, Henry and I attended a community event. Children laughed, vendors sold crafts, and the air was filled with joy. We wandered through the stalls, soaking in the vibrant atmosphere. "Megan!" a voice called out. I turned to see an old friend. We exchanged pleasantries, and as the conversation flowed, I realized how far I had come. The community that once knew me through my shattered marriage now saw a woman reborn, thriving amidst newfound freedom. As the sun began to set, Henry and I sat on a park bench, watching the world go by. He turned to me, his expression serious but tender. "Megan, I know we've both been through a lot, but I want to build our future together. Will you?" Before he could finish, I placed a hand on his. "Yes, Henry, I want that too." His smile was radiant, and in that moment, I saw the future, bright and filled with possibility. The journey from betrayal to healing had been long, but it shaped me into someone stronger, wiser. The shadows of the past didn't disappear, but they faded, replaced by the light of new beginnings. Embracing Henry's hand, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had offered me a second chance, and this time I wasn't looking back. The future, with all its promises, awaited, and I was ready to step into it, with hope and newfound courage leading the way. I stood frozen in the doorway of my sister Helen's opulent living room, my heart pounding as I took in the scene before me. Helen, her face twisted with disdain, gripped her daughter Emily's arm tightly. The little girl's eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "You're taking her. I can't have a sick daughter ruining my remarriage. Do you understand, Abby?" Helen hissed, shoving Emily towards me. I instinctively reached out to steady my niece, feeling her small frame trembling beneath my hands. "Helen, what are you talking about? You can't just—" "I can, and I am," Helen snapped, cutting me off. She strode across the room, her high heels clicking against the marble floor. "Joshua's coming to pick me up in an hour, and Emily needs to be gone before then." I gaped at my sister, struggling to process her words. "Joshua, your fiancé? Does he even know about Emily?" Helen's laugh was brittle. "Of course not. And he's not going to find out. That's where you come in, dear sister." Anger flared within me, hot and fierce. "You expect me to just take Emily and pretend she doesn't exist? She's your daughter, Helen. And now she's your problem," Helen retorted, turning away to examine her reflection in a gilded mirror. "I've already packed her things. They're by the door." I looked down at Emily, who hadn't uttered a word since I arrived. Her small face was pale, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I knelt down beside her, my voice gentle. "Emily, sweetie, are you okay?" Before she could respond, Helen's sharp voice cut through the air. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Abby, don't coddle her. She'll be fine with you and Richard. You've always wanted kids, right? Well, here's your chance." The casual cruelty in Helen's tone made my blood boil. I stood up, squaring my shoulders. "You can't just abandon your child, Helen. This isn't like when we were kids and you dump your responsibilities on me. This is a human being, your daughter." Helen whirled around, her eyes flashing. "Don't you dare lecture me about parenting, Abby. You have no idea what it's been like dealing with her issues. I deserve a chance at happiness, and Joshua is my ticket out of this mess." I felt Emily press closer to my side, and I wrapped an arm protectively around her shoulders. "And what about Emily's happiness? Have you even considered that?" "She'll be happier with you," Helen said dismissively. "Now, if you don't mind, I need to finish getting ready. Joshua will be here soon." As Helen turned back to the mirror, I made a split-second decision. Fine, we're leaving. But this isn't over, Helen. I gently guided Emily towards the door, pausing only to grab the small suitcase that held her belongings. As we stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, I heard Helen call out behind us. "Oh, and Abby, don't even think about trying to contact me. As far as I'm concerned, this chapter of my life is closed." The door slammed shut, the sound echoing in the quiet suburban street. I looked down at Emily, who was clutching my hand tightly. "It's okay, sweetheart," I murmured, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're going to come stay with me and Uncle Richard for a while. Is that all right?" Emily nodded silently, her eyes still wide with shock. As we walked to my car, my mind raced. How was I going to explain this to Richard? How could we possibly care for a child, especially one with health issues we knew nothing about? I helped Emily into the back seat, making sure she was securely buckled in. As I slid behind the wheel, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Richard's name flashed on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "Hey, honey. Listen, we need to talk. Something's happened and, well, we're about to have a house guest." A long-term one. As I started the car and pulled away from Helen's house, I caught sight of Emily in the rearview mirror. Her small face was turned towards the window, a single tear rolling down her cheek. In that moment, I made a silent vow. No matter what it took, I would protect this child and give her the love and stability she deserved, even if it meant going to war with my own sister. I paced the living room, my eyes darting between Emily, who sat quietly on the couch, and Richard, whose face was a mix of shock and concern. "If you're leaving her with us, we won't just babysit. We'll adopt her and make her part of our family," I said, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. Richard nodded, his eyes softening as he looked at Emily. "Of course, Abby. We're in this together." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. A sharp knock at the door made us all jump. I exchanged a worried glance with Richard before going to answer it. My mother, Dolores, stood on the porch, her face tight with anger. "Abigail Tucker, what in God's name is going on? Helen just called me in hysterics." I ushered her inside, my stomach knotting. "Mom, I can explain." But Dolores had already spotted Emily. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "So it's true. You've stolen Helen's daughter." "Stolen?" I sputtered. "Helen abandoned her. She dumped Emily on me and ran off with her new fiancé." Dolores shook her head, lips pursed. "That's not what Helen told me. She said you manipulated her, took advantage of her vulnerable state." "Mom, stop!" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You know Helen. You know how she twists things." But I could see the doubt in my mother's eyes. It was the same look she'd given me countless times growing up, always believing Helen's version of events over mine. Richard stepped forward, his calm voice a stark contrast to the tension in the room. "Dolores, why don't we all sit down and talk about this rationally?" As we settled into the living room, Emily curled up closer to me, her small hand gripping mine tightly. The gesture wasn't lost on my mother, whose expression softened slightly. "Emily, sweetheart," Dolores said gently, "do you want to go home to your mommy?" Emily's grip on my hand tightened. She shook her head vigorously, burying her face against my arm. Dolores frowned, clearly torn. "But Helen says—" "Helen says a lot of things, Mom," I cut in, struggling to keep my voice level. "But actions speak louder than words, and Helen's actions show she doesn't want to be a mother." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "We're going to adopt Emily. Give her the stable, loving home she deserves." The silence that followed was deafening. Dolores stared at me, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly. Finally, she found her voice. "Abby, you can't be serious. This will destroy your relationship with Helen." I laughed bitterly. "What relationship, Mom? The one where she dumps her responsibilities on me and you both pretend it's okay?" Dolores flinched as if I'd slapped her. "That's not fair, Abby. Your sister has always come first," I finished for her. "But not this time. Not with Emily's well-being at stake." Just then, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, my blood running cold. It was a text from Helen. "You think you've won? Just wait. I'll make you regret this, little sister." I showed the message to Richard, whose jaw tightened. "We need to talk to a lawyer," he said quietly. Dolores stood up abruptly. "I need some time to process this. But Abby, please, think about what you're doing. This could tear our family apart." As she left, I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but looking at Emily, peacefully asleep against Richard's shoulder, I knew we'd made the right choice. "We're doing the right thing," Richard reassured me, as if reading my thoughts. I nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long, difficult battle. Helen's threat loomed over us, a storm gathering on the horizon. But as I watched Richard gently stroke Emily's hair, I knew we'd weather whatever came our way. For Emily's sake, we had to. The soft glow of the nightlight cast shadows across Emily's sleeping face as I tucked her in. "You're our daughter now, Emily. We're going to love and protect you," I whispered, seeing hope flicker in her eyes before they fluttered closed. As I quietly left the room, a memory crashed over me like a tidal wave. I was 10 again, cowering in the corner as Helen screamed at our parents, demanding attention, always demanding. I shook my head, trying to dispel the image. No, Emily would never know that kind of pain. Richard was waiting for me in the kitchen, his face grim. "The lawyer called," he said softly. "Helen's contesting the adoption." My heart plummeted. She can't do that. She abandoned Emily. Apparently she's claiming temporary insanity due to stress, says she never meant to give Emily up permanently. I slammed my fist on the counter, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through my hand. "It's all lies. How can she—" The shrill ring of the phone cut me off. Richard answered, his expression darkening as he listened. "It's for you," he said, handing me the receiver. "It's Helen." My sister's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Hello, dear Abby. Having fun playing house with my daughter? What do you want, Helen?" I hissed, trying to keep my voice low. "Oh, I think you know. I want my daughter back, and if you don't bring her to me willingly, I'll make sure everyone knows what a manipulative, child-stealing witch you really are." The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, until Richard gently pried the phone from my hand. "What did she say?" he asked, though his eyes told me he already knew. I recounted Helen's threats, my voice shaking. "She's going to turn everyone against us, Richard. My mother already believes her lies. What if—" A small voice from the doorway made us both jump. "Aunt Abby, are you crying?" Emily stood there, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide with concern. I quickly wiped my eyes, forcing a smile. "No, sweetie, I'm fine. Did you have a bad dream?" She nodded, padding over to us. Without hesitation, Richard scooped her up, holding her close. "Want to talk about it?" he asked gently. Emily buried her face in his shoulder. "I dreamed Mommy came and took me away," she mumbled. "I don't want to go back. Please don't make me go back." My heart shattered. I joined the embrace, sandwiching Emily between us. "Never," I promised fiercely. "You're staying right here with us." As we stood there, a family united, I felt a surge of determination. Helen had tormented me my entire life, always taking, always destroying, but not this time. This time I would fight back. The next morning, I called our family doctor, Dr. Patel. "I need Emily's medical records," I explained. "All of them, from birth until now." There was a pause on the other end. "Abby, you know I can't release those without Helen's permission." "Please," I begged. "It's important. Emily's health and safety might depend on it." Another long pause. Then, "Come by the office this afternoon. We'll talk." As I hung up, I caught sight of Emily at the kitchen table, happily munching on toast, her legs swinging freely. For the first time since she'd arrived, she looked truly relaxed, truly at home. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. "Tick-tock, little sister. Time's running out." I deleted it without responding, my jaw set. Let her make her threats. I had the truth on my side, and I would use it to protect Emily, no matter the cost. As I joined Emily at the table, she looked up at me with a tentative smile. "Can we go to the park today?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair. "But first we need to make a quick stop at the doctor's office." Emily's smile faltered, fear creeping into her eyes. I leaned in close, my voice soft but firm. "Don't worry. I promise, from now on, doctor visits will only ever be to keep you healthy and strong. No more tests, no more pain, okay?" She nodded slowly, trust replacing the fear. As we finished breakfast, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Helen might think she held all the cards, but she had no idea what I was willing to do to keep Emily safe. The war for Emily's future had begun, and I intended to win. The school bell rang, and I watched with pride as Emily bounded out of the classroom, her backpack bouncing with each step. Her smile was radiant, a far cry from the timid child who had arrived on our doorstep months ago. Aunt Abby, Uncle Richard, she called out, rushing into our arms. I got an A on my science project. Richard beamed, ruffling her hair. That's our girl. We knew you could do it. As we walked to the car, Emily chattered excitedly about her day. My heart swelled with love and pride. This was how it should be, a child feeling safe, loved, and encouraged to thrive. But our bubble of happiness was about to burst. As we approached our car, I froze. Helen was leaning against it, her designer sunglasses perched on her nose, a smirk playing on her lips. Well, isn't this a touching family scene? She drawled. Emily instinctively pressed closer to me, her small hand gripping mine tightly. Richard stepped forward, his voice low and warning. Helen, you shouldn't be here. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, relax. Can't an aunt visit her niece? Her gaze zeroed in on Emily. Hello, darling. Mommy's missed you so much. Emily's grip on my hand tightened. I could feel her trembling. Anger surged through me, hot and fierce. Helen, leave, now, I hissed. You're scaring Emily. Helen's smirk widened. Am I? Or are you just afraid she'll remember who her real mother is? She took a step closer, and I instinctively moved Emily behind me. Your real family is right here, Emily, Richard said firmly, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Helen's eyes flashed dangerously. Oh, that's rich. You think you can just play house and erase me? I have news for you, dear sister. My fiancé, Joshua, he's not just wealthy, he's influential, and he's going to help me get my daughter back. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. Let's just say some people owe him favors, people who can make your little adoption dream disappear. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. But before I could respond, Emily's small voice piped up. I don't want to go with you. I want to stay with Aunt Abby and Uncle Richard. Helen's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little... That's enough. Richard's voice boomed, startling us all. Helen, leave now, or we're calling the police. For a moment, I thought she might lash out. But then she straightened, smoothing her designer dress. This isn't over, she spat, before stalking away. The drive home was silent, the weight of Helen's threats hanging over us. As soon as we arrived, I called our lawyer, relaying Helen's words with shaking hands. This is serious, Abby, he said gravely. If she's got connections, this could get ugly. We need to be prepared for a fight. After I hung up, I found Richard and Emily in the living room. Emily was curled up on Richard's lap, her face buried in his chest. My heart ached at the sight. Your real family is right here, Emily, Richard was saying softly. We love you, and we're going to do everything we can to keep you safe. Emily looked up at me as I entered, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't want to leave, she whispered. I knelt beside them, taking her small hands in mine. Listen to me, sweetheart. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, you are our daughter. We will fight for you with everything we have. As I held my family close, I knew we were at a crossroads. Helen's threats weren't empty. She had resources and determination on her side, but so did we, and we had something she didn't, genuine love for Emily. In that moment, I made a decision. We wouldn't just defend, we would fight back. Helen had underestimated us for the last time. Whatever it took, whatever sacrifices we had to make, we would keep our family together. The battle for Emily's future was about to begin in earnest, and I was ready for war. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime a stark contrast to the dread that filled my stomach. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Helen stood there, immaculate as always, with a man I assumed was Joshua by her side. Her smile was saccharine sweet, but her eyes were cold. Hello, sister dear, she purred. Aren't you going to invite us in? I wanted to slam the door in her face, but I knew that would only make things worse. Reluctantly, I stepped aside. As they entered, I caught sight of Emily peeking around the corner. Her eyes widened with fear, and I gave her a reassuring nod. Emily, sweetheart, why don't you go help Uncle Richard in the garden? Helen's eyes narrowed. No, I think Emily should stay. After all, this concerns her. I felt my anger rising. Stay away from her, Helen. You lost the right to call yourself her mother when you abandoned her, I said, firmly standing my ground. Joshua cleared his throat. Mrs. Tucker, I understand this is a delicate situation, but surely you can see that Emily belongs with her mother. Her mother? I scoffed. The woman who dumped her on our doorstep because she was an inconvenience? Helen's face contorted with rage. How dare you? I was going through a difficult time. You have no idea what it's like. No, Helen, you have no idea, I interrupted, my voice shaking with emotion. You have no idea what it's like to love a child so much, you'd sacrifice everything for them. To stay up all night when they're sick, to celebrate every tiny victory, to... Enough, Helen shrieked. She turned to Joshua, her voice suddenly syrupy. Darling, show her the papers. Joshua pulled out an envelope, his expression uncomfortable. Mrs. Tucker, we've filed for custody of Emily. Given that Helen is her biological mother, and considering our resources, we're confident the court will rule in our favor. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You can't do this, I whispered. Helen's triumphant smile made my blood boil. Oh, but we can, and we will. Emily is coming home with us, where she belongs. Just then, a small voice spoke up. No. We all turned to see Emily standing in the doorway, her little fists clenched at her sides. I don't want to go with you. I want to stay here with Aunt Abby and Uncle Richard. Helen's face softened, but there was a dangerous glint in her eye. Sweetie, don't you miss Mommy? We can be a family again with a new daddy who can give you everything you want. Emily shook her head vehemently. You're not my mommy anymore. Aunt Abby and Uncle Richard are my parents now. They love me. Helen's mask slipped, revealing the fury beneath. She lunged forward, grabbing Emily's arm. You ungrateful little brat, after everything I've done for you. I moved without thinking, shoving Helen away from Emily with all my might. Don't you dare touch her. Helen stumbled back, shock written across her face. For a moment, the room was silent, except for Emily's quiet sobs. Then Joshua spoke, his voice tight. I think we should leave now, Helen. As they headed for the door, Helen turned back, her eyes blazing. This isn't over, Abby. I'll see you in court. The door slammed behind them, and I sank to my knees, pulling Emily into a tight embrace. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. We're not going to let them take you away. As I held her, I caught Richard's eye over her head. His face was grim, but determined. We both knew what this meant. The real battle was just beginning. Later that night, after Emily was asleep, Richard and I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents and adoption papers. We can't let them win, I said, my voice hoarse from crying. We can't lose her, Richard. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. We won't. Whatever it takes, whatever we have to do, we're going to fight for our daughter. In that moment, I made a decision. We wouldn't just defend ourselves in court. We would go on the offensive. It was time to dig up every skeleton in Helen's closet, to expose every lie, every manipulation. The war for Emily's future had begun, and I was ready to fight with everything I had. The courthouse loomed before us, its imposing facade a stark reminder of what was at stake. I gripped Richard's hand tightly as we ascended the steps, Emily between us. Today was the day we'd been dreading and preparing for months. As we entered the courtroom, I saw Helen and Joshua already seated, looking smug and confident. Helen caught my eye and smirked. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to remain calm. We had a plan. Our lawyer, Sarah, approached us. Remember, she whispered, stick to the facts. We've got this. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Helen's lawyer painted a picture of a loving mother who had made a mistake in a moment of weakness, now desperate to reunite with her daughter. It took every ounce of self-control not to scoff audibly. Then it was our turn. Sarah called our first witness, Dr. Patel, Emily's longtime physician. Dr. Patel, can you describe Emily's health when she was in Helen's care? Sarah asked. Dr. Patel's face grew grim. Emily was severely undernourished and showed signs of medical neglect. Her condition has improved dramatically since living with the Tuckers. Helen's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. I saw Helen shift uncomfortably in her seat. Next came Emily's teacher, who testified about her academic progress and emotional growth. Emily has blossomed in the Tuckers' care, she said. She's confident, happy, and thriving. As the testimony continued, I felt a glimmer of hope. But then Helen's lawyer called his star witness, my mother, Dolores. My heart sank as she took the stand, avoiding my gaze. Helen's lawyer began his questioning, clearly expecting her to support Helen's case. Mrs. Johnson, in your opinion, who is better suited to raise Emily? There was a long pause. I held my breath, bracing for the worst. But then my mother straightened her shoulders and looked directly at me. My daughter Abby, she said firmly. I was blind for too long to Helen's manipulations. But I've seen how Abby and Richard have loved and cared for Emily. They are her true parents. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Helen's face contorted with rage. I felt tears prick my eyes as my mother finally chose to stand by me. But Helen wasn't done. As the judge called a recess, she cornered me in the hallway, her eyes wild. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "I still have one card left to play. Tell them you're withdrawing your petition, or I'll reveal every dirty secret about our family, including that little incident from your teenage years. You remember, don't you? It would be such a shame if Emily found out her perfect Aunt Abby was once." "Enough." I cut her off, my voice ringing through the hallway. Several heads turned our way. "You will never hurt Emily again. We're done being your puppets," I declared, feeling a sense of liberation wash over me. Helen's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. "You'll regret this," she spat before storming off. As we re-entered the courtroom, my hands shook. What if Helen followed through on her threat? What if it swayed the judge? What if... Richard squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "we face it together." The judge cleared his throat. "Having reviewed all the evidence and testimony, I'm ready to make my ruling." Time seemed to stand still. Emily pressed close to my side, her small hand in mine. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. "In the matter of custody for Emily Walker," the judge began, "I find in favor of—" Suddenly, the courtroom doors burst open. Joshua strode in, his face a mask of fury. "Your Honor," he called out, "I have new evidence that changes everything." The judge frowned. "Mr. Walker, this is highly irregular," but Joshua was already approaching the bench, a thick folder in his hands. "You need to see this before you make your decision," he insisted. As the judge began reviewing the documents, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. What could Joshua have discovered? Had Helen's final threat come to pass? I looked at Emily's frightened face, then at Richard's determined one. Whatever was in that folder, whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I would never stop fighting for our family. The courtroom fell into a tense silence as the judge pored over the documents Joshua had presented. My heart raced and I clutched Emily's hand tightly. Richard's arm around my shoulders was the only thing keeping me from crumbling under the weight of uncertainty. Finally, the judge looked up, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Walker, these allegations are serious. If true, they could significantly impact this case." Helen's triumphant smirk made my blood run cold. What could possibly be in those papers? The judge turned to our lawyer. "Counsel, are you aware of the contents of these documents?" Sarah shook her head, looking as bewildered as I felt. "No, Your Honor. We request time to review and respond to this new evidence." "Granted," the judge nodded. "We'll reconvene tomorrow morning. Court is adjourned." As we left the courtroom, Helen sidled up to me, her voice a venomous whisper. "I told you I'd make you regret this, Abby. By tomorrow, everyone will know the truth about you and your perfect little family." Before I could respond, Richard pulled me away. "Don't engage," he murmured. "We need to focus on what's in those papers." Back at our lawyer's office, Sarah spread the documents across her desk. As I read through them, my heart sank. There were old medical records, police reports, and even school incident reports, all painting a picture of a troubled, unstable teenager. Me. "Helen's dug up every mistake I ever made," I whispered, horrified. "My rebellious phase, the time I got caught shoplifting, even my brief stint in therapy after Dad died. She's twisting it all to make me look unfit to raise Emily." Richard's face was grim. "But that was years ago. You were a kid dealing with trauma. Surely the judge will see that?" Sarah sighed. "It's not that simple. Helen's lawyer will argue that these incidents show a pattern of instability. We need to counter this narrative, and fast." As we strategized late into the night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My blood ran cold as I read it. "I know what really happened the night your father died. Withdraw your petition, or I'll tell everyone." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. That night had been a blur of grief and confusion. I'd always blamed myself for not being there when Dad had his heart attack, but how could anyone else know about that? "Abby?" Richard's concerned voice broke through my panic. "What is it?" I showed him the text, watching his face darken. "This is blackmail," he growled. "We need to tell Sarah." But as our lawyer read the message, a new fear gripped me. What if fighting this only made things worse? What if dragging all this up hurt Emily? Maybe. I whispered, hating myself for even thinking it. Maybe we should withdraw, for Emily's sake. Richard's eyes widened in disbelief. Abby, no, we can't let Helen win like this. Emily belongs with us. But at what cost? I cried, tears streaming down my face. I can't bear the thought of her learning all this, of her looking at me differently. Sarah leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Abby, listen to me. You've done nothing wrong. These are desperate tactics from someone who knows they're losing. We can fight this. As I wrestled with my doubts, my phone chimed again. This time, it was a video message from Emily, recorded by my mother. Her sweet voice filled the room. Aunt Abby, Uncle Richard, I love you. Please don't let them take me away. In that moment, something inside me hardened. I thought of all we'd been through, of the family we'd built. Helen had taken so much from me over the years, but she wouldn't take this. I looked up at Richard and Sarah, my resolve strengthening. Okay, I said, wiping away my tears. What's our next move? As we huddled together, planning our counterattack, I knew tomorrow would be the fight of our lives. But looking at Emily's smiling face on my phone, I was ready for battle. This is our family now, I thought fiercely. We build our future together, no matter what. 12 years had passed since that fateful day in the courtroom. As I watched Emily, now a poised young woman of 18, adjust her graduation cap, I marveled at how far we'd come. Mom, Dad, hurry up, she called, her eyes sparkling with excitement. We're going to be late for the ceremony. Richard appeared beside me, grinning proudly. Our little girl off to college. Can you believe it? I shook my head, overwhelmed by a rush of memories. The bitter custody battle, Helen's desperate attempts to discredit us, the agonizing wait for the judge's final decision. In the end, the truth had prevailed. Helen's manipulations had backfired spectacularly, exposing her own neglect and deceit. The judge had not only granted us full custody, but had also praised our dedication to Emily's well-being. As we drove to the high school, I couldn't help but think of Helen. Last we'd heard, she was living alone in a small apartment, her dreams of a luxurious life with Joshua shattered. Part of me felt a twinge of pity, but it was overshadowed by the joy of the life we'd built. The graduation ceremony was a blur of emotions. As Emily's name was called, we cheered loudly, our hearts bursting with pride. Mayor Robert Evans, who had become a mentor to Emily over the years, presented her with a special community service award. I caught sight of my mother, Dolores, wiping away tears in the audience. After the ceremony, as we gathered for photos, Emily suddenly grew quiet. Mom, Dad, she said softly, there's someone I invited today. I hope that's okay. I followed her gaze and felt my breath catch. Helen stood at the edge of the crowd, looking older and somehow smaller than I remembered. For a moment I was transported back to all the pain and anger of the past. But then I saw the uncertainty in Helen's eyes, the way she hesitated to approach. Emily squeezed my hand. She reached out a few months ago. We've been talking. I think she's changed. I looked at Richard, seeing my own mix of emotions reflected in his eyes. Then I nodded, making a decision. Go on, I told Emily. Invite her over. As Helen cautiously joined our group, the years of resentment and hurt seemed to melt away. She looked at Emily with a mixture of pride and regret. Congratulations, she said softly. You've grown into an amazing young woman. Emily smiled, then did something that surprised us all. She hugged Helen. Thank you for coming, she said, and thank you for giving me the chance to have the best parents I could have asked for. Helen's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Richard and me. Abby, Richard, I'm so sorry for everything. You gave Emily the life I couldn't. Thank you for loving her when I didn't know how. In that moment, I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. We're family, I said simply. All of us. As we posed for a photo, Emily in the center, flanked by Richard and me, with Helen and my mother on either side, I marveled at the journey that had brought us here. The struggles, the tears, the triumphs, all of it had led to this moment of healing and hope. Later that night, as we sat around the dinner table sharing memories and laughter, Emily raised her glass. We're ready for anything now, she said, her voice filled with newfound confidence. Together, nothing can break us. I looked around at the faces of my family, Richard, my rock, Emily, our precious daughter, my mother finally free from Helen's manipulations, and even Helen tentatively finding her place in our lives again. I thought of all we'd overcome, of the love that had carried us through the darkest times. To family, I said, raising my own glass, to new beginnings and unbreakable bonds. As our glasses clinked together, I knew that whatever challenges the future held, we would face them as we always had, together, stronger for the trials we'd endured, and filled with love for the family we'd fought so hard to build. I stepped back, admiring the vibrant array of flowers I'd just planted. The secret garden, tucked away in a corner of Brad's family estate, was finally coming to life. Sunlight dappled through the leaves, casting a warm glow on the freshly turned soil. "Amy, where are you?" Brad's voice echoed across the grounds. I wiped my hands on my jeans and called back, "Over here, honey, in the garden." Brad appeared around the corner, his face breaking into a wide smile as he took in the scene. "Wow, you've been busy. It looks amazing." "Thanks," I said, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "I think your mother will love it." Brad's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "I'm sure she will. Listen, I need to talk to you about something." I felt a flutter of nervousness in my stomach. "Is everything okay?" He ran a hand through his hair, a telltale sign he was stressed. "I just got a call from the office. They need me to fly out to Shanghai tomorrow for an important meeting." "Tomorrow," I echoed, my heart sinking. "But what about?" I know," he said, pulling me into a hug. "I'm sorry, Amy. I tried to get out of it, but this deal could make or break the company." I pulled back, searching his face. "How long will you be gone?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. He hesitated, then added, "I was thinking, maybe you could stay here with my mother while I'm away?" I froze. Emily and I had never quite clicked, despite my best efforts. The thought of spending weeks alone with her made my stomach churn. "I don't know, Brad. Maybe I could just stay at our place?" "Please, Amy," he pleaded. "Mom's been lonely since Dad passed, and I'd feel better knowing you're not alone, especially with the baby on the way." At the mention of the baby, my hand instinctively went to my still flat stomach. We'd only found out a week ago, and the news still felt surreal. "All right," I conceded. "I'll stay." Brad's face lit up. "Thank you, sweetheart. I promise it'll be fine. Mom will be thrilled to have you here." As if on cue, Emily's voice rang out from the house. "Bradley? Are you out there?" "Speaking of Mom," Brad muttered. "We're in the garden, Mother," he called back. Emily appeared moments later, immaculately dressed as always. Her eyes swept over the garden, then landed on me, still covered in dirt. "Oh, Amy, dear, you look a fright. Why don't you go clean up? I need to speak with Bradley about his trip." I opened my mouth to protest, but Brad squeezed my hand. "Go on, honey. I'll fill Mom in on everything." Reluctantly, I headed towards the house. As I reached the door, I glanced back. Emily was gesturing animatedly, her voice low but intense. Brad's shoulders were hunched, his head bowed. A chill ran down my spine. Something told me the next few weeks were going to be far from fine. Inside, I washed my hands and splashed water on my face, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. When I looked up, Emily was standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "So," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "it seems we'll be roommates for a while." I forced a smile. "Looks that way." Emily's eyes narrowed. "I do hope you'll be able to keep up with the house while you're here. It's quite a bit larger than that little apartment you and Bradley insist on living in." "I'm sure I'll manage," I replied, gritting my teeth. "Oh, and Amy," Emily added as she turned to leave, "do try to dress more appropriately while you're here. We wouldn't want the neighbors to think we've hired new help." With that, she swept out of the room, leaving me stunned and fighting back tears. As I heard Brad's car start up outside, panic gripped me. What had I gotten myself into? The first week without Brad was even worse than I'd imagined. Emily's true colors emerged like a poisonous bloom, her words dripping with venom at every turn. I was in the kitchen, battling morning sickness while trying to prepare lunch, when Emily sauntered in. "Oh, Amy dear, you're not using the good china, are you? I'm not sure your delicate touch is quite up to handling such precious heirlooms." I gripped the counter, willing my stomach to settle. "I thought we could use them since your bridge club is coming over." Emily's laugh was like nails on a chalkboard. "Darling, my friends are used to a certain standard. Perhaps it's best if you let me handle the entertaining. Why don't you go tend to that little patch of weeds you call a garden? I bit my tongue, reminding myself that this was temporary. Of course, Emily, whatever you think is best. As I headed outside, I heard her mutter, "At least out there she can't embarrass us all." The garden became my sanctuary, the only place I could escape Emily's constant criticism. But even there, I wasn't safe for long. One afternoon, as I was pruning the roses, Emily's shrill voice cut through the air. "Amy, come here this instant!" I found her in the living room, face flushed with anger, holding a framed photo. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. My heart sank as I recognized the picture, Brad and me on our wedding day, beaming with joy. I'd placed it on the mantel that morning, hoping to add a personal touch to the cold, impersonal room. I thought it would be nice, too. "Nice?" Emily interrupted. "You thought it would be nice to plaster your common little face all over my home? This is the Hartley estate, not some trashy little apartment in the city." I felt tears pricking at my eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I'll take it down." Emily thrust the frame into my hands. "See that you do, and while you're at it, perhaps you could make yourself useful and dust in here. The maids have been slacking lately." As I turned to leave, she added, "Oh, and Amy, do try to watch your figure. I'd hate for Bradley to come home to find he's married a whale." That night, I sobbed into my pillow, one hand resting protectively over my stomach. I desperately wanted to call Brad, to beg him to come home, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. His business deal was too important, and I didn't want to be the needy, clingy wife Emily clearly thought I was. The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. Curious, I crept to the top of the stairs, listening. "Don't know what Bradley was thinking, marrying that girl," Emily was saying. "She's completely out of her depth here. No breeding, no class." "Now, Emily," a man's voice replied, "surely she can't be that bad. Bradley's always had good judgment." "Good judgment?" Emily scoffed. The boy was clearly thinking with something other than his brain. "Mark my words, George, she's after the Hartley fortune. Why else would a nobody like her set her sights on my son?" I stumbled back, feeling as if I'd been slapped. Is that really what Emily thought of me? What she was telling people about me? Suddenly, a wave of nausea hit me. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time. As I knelt on the cold tile floor, tears streaming down my face, I made a decision. I couldn't let Emily's cruelty continue unchecked. For the sake of my baby and my own sanity, I had to fight back. With shaking hands, I reached for my phone and opened the voice recorder app. From now on, I'd document every nasty comment, every veiled insult. Emily Hartley might think she held all the power, but I was done being a victim. "Let the games begin," I thought grimly. "You have no idea who you're messing with, Emily." I woke up to the sound of Emily's shrill voice echoing through the house. "Amy, where are you? These floors won't scrub themselves." Groaning, I rolled out of bed, my stomach churning with morning sickness. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night hunched over the toilet. But Emily didn't care about that. All she cared about was her precious estate. "Coming, Emily," I called weakly, fumbling for my phone. I hit record before heading downstairs. Emily stood in the foyer, arms crossed. "There you are. I hope you're not planning to laze about all day. We have guests coming this evening, and this place is a disgrace." I looked around the spotless room, confused. "I cleaned yesterday. What needs?" "Everything," Emily snapped. "The floors need scrubbing, the silver needs polishing, and for heaven's sake, do something about that rat's nest you call hair. You're representing the Hartley family now, though God knows why Bradley chose you." I bit my lip, fighting back tears. "I'll get started right away." "See that you do," Emily said, turning on her heel. "Oh, and Amy? Be a dear and run to the market. We're out of caviar, and you know how particular my friends are." I spent the next few hours scrubbing floors, polishing silver, and battling waves of nausea. By the time I finished, I was exhausted and starving. I hadn't had a chance to eat all day. As I was heading to the kitchen, Emily intercepted me. "Where do you think you're going?" "I was just going to make a sandwich." "Nonsense," Emily cut me off. "You need to start on dinner. I've invited the Johnsons and the Petersons. I expect a 4-course worth meal, and none of that pedestrian fare you usually serve." My stomach growled loudly. Emily's eyes narrowed. "Really, Amy, a lady never lets her base urges show. No wonder you've already gained so much weight." I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. I haven't eaten all day, Emily. The baby. Oh, spare me, Emily rolled her eyes. When I was pregnant with Bradley, I hardly gained an ounce, but then I come from good stock. Now get to work, and do try not to ruin dinner with your morning sickness. It's so common. Hours later, I was plating the final course when the doorbell rang. Emily swept past me, pausing only to hiss, "Remember, you're the help tonight. Stay in the kitchen where you belong." I nodded mutely, too tired to argue. As I listened to Emily greeting her guests, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Brad. "Hey, sweetheart, how are things? Mom taking good care of you?" I stared at the screen, tears welling up. How could I tell him the truth, that his mother was slowly crushing my spirit, that I was afraid for our baby? Before I could respond, Emily's voice rang out. "Amy, where's that dessert?" Wiping my eyes, I grabbed the tray and headed to the dining room. As I entered, I overheard Emily speaking in a low voice. "Such a shame. Bradley could have done so much better. But what can you do when a gold digger sinks her claws in?" The tray slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor. Silence fell as all eyes turned to me. I'm so sorry," I stammered, dropping to my knees to clean up the mess. Emily's face was a mask of fake concern. "Oh, Amy dear, how clumsy of you. Perhaps you should lie down. You're looking rather unwell." As I fled the room, I heard Emily's saccharine voice. "Poor thing. She's just not cut out for this life, I'm afraid. Now who wants coffee?" Back in my room, I collapsed on the bed, sobs racking my body. I couldn't take much more of this. Something had to change. My hand drifted to my stomach, and suddenly a fierce determination washed over me. I might not be able to stand up for myself, but I would fight tooth and nail for my baby. Grabbing my phone, I hit play on the latest recording. Emily's cruel words filled the air, and I knew what I had to do. It was time to build my case. Emily Hartley was about to learn that this gold digger had teeth of her own. The day of Emily's grand luncheon arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. My morning sickness had been particularly brutal, but I knew Emily wouldn't accept that as an excuse. I'd barely finished setting the table when the doorbell chimed. "Amy," Emily's voice rang out. "Don't just stand there gawking. Answer the door." I smoothed down my dress, the nicest one I owned, though Emily had sniffed disapprovingly when she saw it, and opened the door. A group of impeccably dressed women swept past me, air-kissing Emily and exclaiming over the decor. "Ladies, you remember my son's wife, Amy," Emily said, her tone making it clear what she thought of that fact. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the scrutinizing gazes. One woman, however, looked at me with genuine warmth. She was older than the others, with kind eyes and an elegant demeanor. "Amy, dear," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Carol. It's lovely to meet you at last." Before I could respond, Emily cut in. "Amy, why don't you check on lunch? We wouldn't want anything to go wrong, would we?" I retreated to the kitchen, my cheeks burning. As I busied myself with the final preparations, I could hear snippets of conversation from the dining room. "Really, Emily, she seems like a lovely girl." "You don't know the half of it, Carol. The way she's changed Bradley." I gripped the counter, fighting back tears. Just then, the kitchen door swung open, and Carol entered. "Need a hand, dear?" she asked, her eyes taking in my distress. "Oh, no, I couldn't ask you to." "Nonsense," Carol said firmly. "I insist. Now what can I do?" As we worked side by side, Carol chatted easily about her garden, her grandchildren, anything but the tension-filled luncheon beyond the kitchen door. For the first time in weeks, I felt myself relaxing. "You know," Carol said casually, "I knew your parents years ago." I nearly dropped the platter I was holding. "You did," Carol nodded. "Lovely people. Your mother had quite the green thumb, if I recall correctly." Before I could ask more, Emily's voice cut through our conversation. "Amy, where is that salad?" Lunch was a minefield of backhanded compliments and thinly veiled insults, all delivered with Emily's saccharine smile. I focused on my plate, trying to keep my composure. "Amy," one of the women simpered, "Emily tells us you're expecting. How quaint." I opened my mouth to respond, but Emily jumped in. "Yes, it was quite a surprise. We're all hoping the child takes after the Hartley side, of course." The table tittered with laughter, and I felt my face flame. Suddenly, Carol's voice cut through the chatter. "I think it's wonderful," she said firmly. "The world needs more children raised with love and kindness. I'm sure Amy and Bradley will be wonderful parents." A hush fell over the table. Emily's smile became brittle. Well, we can only hope. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself gravitating towards Carol. There was something about her, a quiet strength, a hint of sadness in her eyes that drew me in. But every time we started talking, Emily would swoop in, steering Carol away. Finally, as the guests were leaving, Carol managed to pull me aside. "Amy, dear, I want you to have my number. If you ever need anything at all, please call me." I clutched the card she pressed into my hand, a lifeline in this sea of hostility. "Thank you, Carol." "Amy," Emily's sharp voice cut me off. "Stop bothering, Carol, and come say goodbye to our guests." As I watched Carol drive away, I felt a mix of hope and confusion. Why had she been so kind? And why did I sense a hint of disappointment when she looked at me? Later that night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Brad. "Great news. Closing the deal early. Be home in a week." I stared at the screen, a war of emotions raging inside me. Relief at Brad's imminent return battled with fear of what Emily might do in this final week. One thing was clear. I needed to make a decision. Would I continue to endure in silence? Or would I finally stand up to Emily? With a deep breath, I reached for my phone and pulled up Carol's number. It was time to take control of my own story. I woke up feeling dizzy and nauseous, my pregnancy symptoms hitting me full force. Despite my discomfort, I dragged myself out of bed, knowing Emily wouldn't tolerate any laziness. As I made my way downstairs, I overheard Emily on the phone. "Yes, Carol, I'd love for you to stop by this afternoon. There's something I need to discuss with you." My heart raced. Carol was coming? I hadn't spoken to her since the luncheon, but her kindness had been a beacon of hope in this nightmare. Emily hung up and turned, her eyes narrowing when she saw me. "Eavesdropping, Amy? How uncouth. Since you're up, make yourself useful and clean the conservatory. It's filthy." I bit back a retort and headed to the conservatory. Hours passed as I scrubbed and polished, my back aching and stomach churning. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I sank onto a chaise lounge, closing my eyes for just a moment. "Amy?" I jolted awake to find Emily looming over me, her face twisted with rage. "You lazy, good-for-nothing girl. I give you one simple task, and I find you napping like some pampered princess." "I'm sorry, Emily," I stammered, struggling to my feet. "I just felt a bit faint." "Faint?" Emily scoffed. "In my day, women didn't use pregnancy as an excuse to shirk their duties. But then, I suppose I shouldn't expect better from someone of your background." Tears stung my eyes as Emily continued her tirade. "I knew from the moment Bradley brought you home that you were nothing but a gold digger. What did you do? Get yourself pregnant to trap him? Well, let me tell you something. You little—" "Emily!" We both whirled to see Carol standing in the doorway, her face pale with shock. Emily's demeanor changed instantly. "Carol, darling, I didn't hear you come in. Amy and I were just having a little chat about her responsibilities." Carol's eyes flicked between us, settling on me with concern. "Amy, dear, you look unwell. Why don't you sit down?" Before I could move, Emily interjected. "Nonsense, she's fine. Amy, go make some tea for our guest." As I turned to leave, a wave of dizziness washed over me. I stumbled, my vision blurring. "Amy?" Carol's voice seemed far away. I felt hands catching me as I fell, then everything went black. I came to on the chaise lounge, Carol's worried face hovering above me. "There you are, dear. How are you feeling?" I'm okay," I mumbled, trying to sit up. Emily's voice cut through the fog. "Really, Amy, such dramatics. I'm sure Carol didn't come here to witness your theatrics." Carol's eyes flashed. "Actually, Emily, I think it's time we had a frank discussion about how you're treating your daughter-in-law." Emily's face paled. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Amy is simply—" "I heard you, Emily," Carol said firmly. "Every word, and I'm appalled." As the two women faced off, I felt a surge of strength. This was my chance. "Emily," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I've been documenting everything, the insults, the unreasonable demands, all of it. If you don't change your behavior, I'll have no choice but to show Brad the truth when he returns." Emily's jaw dropped. "You wouldn't dare." "I would," I replied, meeting her gaze. "This isn't just about me anymore. I have to protect my child from your toxicity." A tense silence fell. Then, to my shock, Emily burst into tears. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "Bradley is all I have left. I can't lose him." As Carol comforted the suddenly vulnerable Emily, I sat back, stunned. Was this genuine emotion or another manipulation? Looking at Carol's sympathetic face, I realized I had a decision to make. Did I use this moment of weakness to strike back at Emily, or was there a chance for reconciliation? My hand drifted to my stomach, and I knew what I had to do. For the sake of my child, I needed to break this cycle of hurt. But how? With a deep breath, I stood up. It was time to take control of this situation, once and for all. The tension in the room was palpable as Emily's sobs subsided into hiccups. Carol patted her back gently, but her eyes were fixed on me, a mixture of sympathy and determination in her gaze. "Amy," Carol said softly, "there's something you need to know." I braced myself, unsure of what was coming next. Carol took a deep breath. "I knew your parents, as I mentioned before, but it wasn't just a casual acquaintance. Your mother? She was my best friend." The room seemed to tilt. "What? But how? Why didn't you say anything before?" "I wanted to, believe me," Carol replied, her eyes misting, "but I made a promise years ago to your mother. She asked me to watch over you, but to let you make your own way in the world." Emily's head snapped up, her tear-stained face twisted with confusion. "What are you talking about, Carol?" Carol squared her shoulders. "Emily, it's time for the truth to come out. Amy isn't some gold digger you can bully and demean. Her parents were respected members of this community before they passed. In fact, Amy's mother saved your husband's life once. I felt like I was in a dream." "What? How?" "Your mother was a brilliant botanist," Carol explained. "When Emily's husband fell ill with a rare condition, it was your mother who developed the treatment that saved him. But she never wanted recognition. She only cared about helping people." Emily's face had gone pale. That's impossible. I would have known." "Would you?" Carol asked sharply. "Or were you too caught up in your own world to notice the kindness of others?" I sank into a chair, my mind reeling. All this time, I'd been enduring Emily's abuse, thinking I had no connection to this world. But my parents had been a part of it all along. Suddenly, Emily lunged for her phone. "I need to call Bradley. This can't be true. He needs to come home now." Without thinking, I grabbed Emily's wrist. "No! You don't get to control this narrative anymore." Emily's eyes widened in shock at my defiance. "How dare you?" "No, how dare you?" I shot back, my voice trembling with anger and newfound strength. "You've tormented me for weeks, made me feel worthless and small, but I'm done being your punching bag." I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over the voice memo app. "I have everything recorded, Emily. Every insult, every cruel comment. Do you really want Brad to hear how you've treated his wife and unborn child?" Emily's face crumpled. "You wouldn't." "I don't want to," I said, softening my tone. "But I will if I have to. This has to stop, Emily. Not just for me, but for all of us, including you." Carol stepped between us. "Ladies, please, this isn't the way to resolve things. Emily, you need to understand the pain you've caused. And Amy, revenge won't heal those wounds." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. "You're right, Carol. But what do we do now?" Before anyone could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Brad. "Hey, sweetheart. Surprise. I'm at the airport. Be home in an hour. Can't wait to see you and Mom." The blood drained from my face. Brad was coming home. Now. And he had no idea about the war that had been raging in his absence. Emily and I locked eyes, a moment of understanding passing between us. We had less than an hour to decide how this story would end. "Well," Carol said, her voice steady, "it seems we have a choice to make. Do we continue this cycle of hurt, or do we find a way to heal?" I looked down at my phone, then at Emily's tear-stained face, and finally at my still flat stomach where my child was growing. In that moment, I realized that the next move I made would shape not just my future, but the future of my family for generations to come. With a deep breath, I made my decision. Let's talk. The sound of Brad's key in the lock sent my heart racing. Emily, Carol, and I exchanged panicked glances. We'd spent the last hour in tense discussion, but nothing was resolved. "Hello? Anyone home?" Brad's cheerful voice echoed through the foyer. Emily straightened her hair, plastering on a smile. "In here, darling." Brad appeared in the doorway, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Amy, God, I've missed you." He swept me into a hug, then froze, noticing the tension in the room. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I possibly explain everything? Emily jumped in. "Bradley, dear, we were just having a little chat, nothing to worry about." Brad's eyes narrowed. "Mom, what have you done?" The accusation in his voice surprised me. Maybe he wasn't as oblivious as I'd thought. I haven't done anything, Emily protested, but her voice wavered. Actually, Emily, Carol interjected gently, I think it's time for honesty. Brad looked between us, confusion etched on his face. Will someone please tell me what's happening? I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Brad, your mother has been unkind to me while you were gone. Unkind? Emily scoffed. Don't be so dramatic, Amy. Something inside me snapped. Dramatic, you've belittled me, insulted my family, worked me to exhaustion despite my pregnancy, and made me feel worthless in my own home. Brad's face darkened. Mom, is this true? Emily's mask crumbled. I was just trying to protect you, Bradley. She's not good enough for you. Not good enough? Carol's voice rang out. Emily, do you even know who Amy is, who her parents were? As Carol revealed the truth about my parents, Brad's expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally deep hurt. You knew? He asked his mother. You knew about Amy's parents and still treated her this way? Emily's shoulders sagged. I didn't want to lose you, Bradley. You're all I have left. So you tried to drive away the woman I love, the mother of my child? Brad's voice cracked with emotion. I felt a surge of love for him, mixed with a fierce determination. Brad, there's more. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over the recordings. I've documented everything. Emily's eyes widened in panic. Amy, please? For a moment I was tempted. One button, and Emily would face the consequences of her actions. But as I looked at Brad's anguished face, I realized the truth would hurt him as much as it would punish Emily. With a shaky breath, I deleted the recordings. No more secrets, no more manipulation. If we're going to be a family, we need to start fresh. Brad squeezed my hand, gratitude shining in his eyes. Amy's right, Mom, I love you, but this has to stop. You need to accept Amy, or what? Emily whispered. Or you'll lose us both, Brad said firmly. The room fell silent. Emily's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Please don't leave me. As I watched Emily break down, I felt my anger begin to dissipate. In its place, a surprising emotion emerged, compassion. This woman, who had tormented me for weeks, was suddenly human, flawed, afraid, and desperately lonely. I knelt beside Emily, taking her hand. We're not leaving you, Emily, but things have to change. Emily nodded, squeezing my hand. I'll do better, I promise. As Brad joined us, wrapping us both in a hug, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wouldn't be easy, but maybe, just maybe, we could build a real family. Carol watched us with tears in her eyes. Your parents would be so proud of you, Amy. She whispered. In that moment, surrounded by the tangled threads of past and present, I realized that this wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. Messy, complicated, but full of possibility. The real challenge was just starting. Could we truly heal the wounds of the past and create a future together? As I felt my baby kick for the first time, I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to try. 6 months had passed since that fateful confrontation, and I found myself back in the secret garden, my swollen belly a testament to the new life growing within me. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the tension that had permeated the house for so long. Amy? Emily's voice called out, hesitant and soft, so different from the sharp tones that had once cut me to the core. I turned to see her approaching, a tray of lemonade in her hands. I thought you might be thirsty, she said, offering me a glass. As I took it, our eyes met. The past months hadn't been easy. There had been arguments, tears, and moments when I thought we'd never move past the hurt, but slowly, painfully, we'd begun to rebuild. Thank you, I said, meaning it for more than just the drink. Emily settled beside me on the bench, her eyes roaming over the garden. You've done wonders here, she murmured, just like your mother would have. The mention of my mother no longer brought pain, but a warm glow of pride. Carol had shared so many stories, helping me piece together the legacy I'd inherited. Suddenly, a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I gasped, the glass slipping from my fingers. Emily's eyes widened in alarm. Amy, is it time? I nodded, unable to speak as another contraction hit. Emily sprang into action, her voice strong and sure as she called for Brad and dialed the hospital. The next few hours passed in a blur of pain and anticipation. Brad held my hand, his face a mix of worry and excitement, and to my surprise, Emily never left my side, her cool hand on my forehead a constant comfort. As dawn broke, a new cry filled the room. Our daughter Lily entered the world with a lusty wail that brought tears to my eyes. "She's beautiful," Brad whispered, cradling our tiny daughter. I looked up to see Emily hovering uncertainly at the edge of the bed. "Would you like to hold your granddaughter?" I asked. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she gently took Lily in her arms. "Hello, little one," she cooed. "I'm your Grammy, and I promise to love you fiercely and fairly, always." In that moment, watching Emily with Lily, I felt the last of my resentment melt away. We'd all made mistakes, but we'd also found the strength to forgive and grow. As if sensing the shift, Lily opened her eyes, fixing us all with a gaze that seemed wise beyond her minutes. "She has your mother's eyes," Emily said softly, looking at me with a mixture of regret and hope. I reached out, taking Emily's hand. "And she'll grow up knowing all about her grandmother and her great-grandparents and the legacy of love and strength they left behind." Brad joined us on the bed, wrapping his arms around us all. "We're a family," he said firmly. "All of us. And we're going to do this right." As I looked at the faces around me, Brad's steadfast love, Emily's hard-won acceptance, and Lily's infinite potential, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been difficult, filled with thorns and poison ivy, but it had led us here, to this moment of new blooms and fresh starts. Carol arrived later that day, her arms full of blue hydrangeas. "For new beginnings," she said with a wink. As we all gathered around Lily, sharing stories and laughter, I realized that this was more than just a happy ending. It was a new chapter, one filled with the promise of growth, understanding, and unconditional love. I thought of the secret garden, how it had flourished under care and attention, despite the initial neglect. Our family was like that garden now, tended with patience, nurtured with compassion, and blooming with the vibrant colors of reconciliation and hope. Lily gurgled in my arms, her tiny hand wrapping around my finger. In her grasp I felt the strength of generations, my parents' legacy, Brad's unwavering support, Emily's hard-earned wisdom, and my own resilience. As I looked out the window at the garden beyond, I smiled. Life, like a garden, was full of seasons. We'd weathered the winter of discontent and emerged into a spring of new possibilities, and I knew, with unshakable certainty, that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, our roots intertwined, reaching for the sun. I smoothed my apron for the 100th time, trying to calm my nerves as I listened to the raised voices coming from the living room. It was happening again. Sam and his mother were at it, their argument echoing through our shared home. "You can't keep meddling in our lives, Mom." Sam's voice cracked with frustration. "I'm not meddling, I'm helping," his mother retorted. "Someone has to keep this family together." I sighed, setting down the dish I'd been drying. It was always like this. Ever since Sam's parents moved in with us last year, the tension had been building. I'd tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law, but nothing seemed good enough for Margaret. The kitchen door swung open and Sam stormed in, his face flushed. "Abby, I can't take it anymore. She's driving me crazy." I reached out to touch his arm. "What happened this time?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's been going through our bills, can you believe it? Says we're not managing our money right." "What?" I felt my own anger rising. "That's none of her business." I know. Sam leaned against the counter, deflated. "I told her to back off, but you know how she is." The kitchen door opened again, and Margaret swept in, her eyes narrowing when she saw us together. "Samuel, we're not finished discussing this." I stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Margaret, maybe we could all sit down and talk about this calmly?" She turned her steely gaze on me. "Abigail, dear, this is a family matter. Why don't you go finish the dishes?" I felt my cheeks burn. "I am family, Margaret. I'm your son's wife." "Of course you are," she said, her tone dismissive. "But you don't understand how things work in our family." Sam put his arm around me. "Mom, that's enough. Abby's right. We should all talk about this together." Margaret's lips thinned. "Fine, let's sit down then." We moved to the dining room, the tension thick in the air. I sat next to Sam, across from his parents. His father, Robert, looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting between us. "Now," Margaret began, folding her hands on the table, "I think it's time we discussed the family finances." I couldn't hold back anymore. "With all due respect, Margaret, our finances are not your concern." She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, but they are, dear. You see, this house, it's still in our name." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What?" Sam turned to his father. "Dad, is that true?" Robert cleared his throat. Well, yes, we never got around to transferring the deed. You told us this was our house, I exclaimed, my voice rising. We've been paying the mortgage. Margaret smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And we appreciate that, but as long as our name is on the deed, we have a say in how things are run here. I looked at Sam, expecting him to protest, but he was staring at the table, his jaw clenched. Sam? I whispered, my heart pounding. He finally looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and defeat. I'm sorry, Abby, I didn't know. In that moment, something shifted. I saw my husband and his family in a new, unsettling light. This wasn't just about bills or a house. This was about control, about power. As I sat there, stunned into silence, I realized that everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was built on shifting sand. And for the first time since I'd married into this family, I felt a spark of something dangerous ignite within me. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, I muttered, fleeing the room. As I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, I heard Margaret's voice floating up behind me. See, Samuel? This is why we need to step in. She clearly can't handle adult conversations. I closed the door behind me, leaning against it as tears threatened to spill. But beneath the hurt and betrayal, a new feeling was taking root. Determination. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning as memories flooded my mind. Each recollection was like a piece of a puzzle, finally falling into place to reveal a picture I'd been too blind to see. The first Thanksgiving after our wedding, when Margaret accidentally spilled cranberry sauce on my new tablecloth. Oh, Abigail, she'd said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, you really should use better quality linens. These cheap ones stain so easily. Sam's birthday last year, when she'd taken over the party planning. It's just that I know what Samuel likes, she'd explained, patting my hand condescendingly. You'll learn eventually, dear. And just last month, when she'd rearranged our entire kitchen while I was out grocery shopping. I couldn't stand to see it so disorganized, she'd said, ignoring my shocked expression. Now it's much more efficient. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. How had I not seen it before? The constant criticism, the undermining, the control. It wasn't just annoying behavior, it was manipulation. The next morning, I found Sam in the kitchen, looking exhausted. Hey, he said, barely meeting my eyes. About last night. I cut him off. Why didn't you tell me about the house, Sam? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I honestly didn't know, Abby. Dad always said it would be ours. But you never checked? Never thought to ask for the paperwork? I trusted them, he said, his voice small. They're my parents. I felt a surge of frustration. And what about trusting me? Your wife? Before he could answer, Margaret swept into the kitchen. Good morning, dears. Samuel, I've been thinking about what we discussed last night. I think it's time we had a family meeting about the household budget. I gritted my teeth. Margaret, we've already told you. Now, she interrupted, holding up a hand. Let's not get emotional. This is about what's best for the family. I looked at Sam, silently pleading for him to stand up to her. He cleared his throat. Mom, maybe we could discuss this later? Nonsense, she said briskly. There's no time like the present, she called out. Come down here, please. We're having a family meeting. As Robert shuffled in, looking uncomfortable, I felt something inside me snap. No, I said firmly. We're not having a family meeting. Not now, not ever. Margaret's eyes widened in shock. I beg your pardon? You heard me, I continued, my voice growing stronger. This is our home, our life. You don't get to make decisions for us anymore. Abigail, she gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. How dare you speak to me like that, after everything we've done for you? I laughed bitterly. Done for me? You mean criticizing every decision I make, undermining my role in this family, making me feel like I don't belong in my own home? Sam stepped forward, his face pale. Abby, calm down. Let's not say things we'll regret. I turned to him, my eyes blazing. And you? When are you going to stand up to her, Sam? When are you going to choose our marriage over her control? The kitchen fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Margaret's face had turned an alarming shade of red, while Robert looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Sam opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. No, I'm done talking. I'm done pretending everything is fine when it's not. Something has to change, and it has to change now. With that, I stormed out of the kitchen, my heart pounding. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Margaret's shrill voice behind me. "Samuel, are you going to let her speak to me like that? To us? Your family?" I paused at the top of the stairs, waiting for Sam's response. The silence stretched on, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Finally, I heard his voice, quiet but clear. "Mom, I think Abby's right. We need to talk about some changes." As I closed the bedroom door behind me, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Anger, fear, but also a glimmer of hope. The battle lines had been drawn. Now it was time to fight for my marriage, my home, and my self-respect. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a war that would change everything. I needed to get out of the house. The tension was suffocating, and I could feel Margaret's disapproving glare burning into my back every time I passed her. I grabbed my gardening gloves and headed for the backyard, hoping some fresh air would clear my head. As I knelt in the dirt, yanking out weeds with more force than necessary, I heard a familiar voice call out. "Abigail? Everything all right over there?" I looked up to see Ellen, my next-door neighbor, peering over the fence. Her kind face was creased with concern. "Oh, Ellen," I sighed, brushing the dirt from my hands. "I don't even know where to start." She opened the gate between our yards and came to sit beside me on the garden bench. "Well, honey, why don't you try the beginning?" The words tumbled out of me like a dam bursting. I told her everything. The revelation about the house, Margaret's constant interference, Sam's inability to stand up to his mother. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Ellen handed me a tissue from her pocket. "Oh, Abigail, I had no idea things were so bad." "I didn't either," I admitted. "Or maybe I did and I just didn't want to see it." She patted my hand. "It's not your fault, dear. Some people are masters at manipulation. They can make you doubt your own mind." I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Finally, someone understood. "The question is," Ellen continued, her voice gentle but firm, "what are you going to do about it?" I took a deep breath. I think we need to move out, start fresh, just Sam and me." Ellen's eyebrows shot up. "That's a big step. Have you talked to Sam about this?" Before I could answer, I heard the back door slam. Sam strode across the yard, his face tight with anger. "Abby, we need to talk. Now." I stood up, my heart racing. "Sam, what's wrong?" He glanced at Ellen, then back at me. "Inside, please." I followed him into the house, throwing an apologetic look at Ellen over my shoulder. As soon as the door closed behind us, Sam rounded on me. "What did you say to my mother?" he demanded. I blinked, taken aback. "What? I haven't said anything to her since this morning." "Well, she's upstairs crying her eyes out, saying you've turned the whole family against her." I felt a surge of anger. "Are you kidding me? After everything she's done, she's playing the victim?" Sam ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. "Look, I know things have been tense, but she's still my mother. You can't just—" "Can't what, Sam?" I interrupted. "Can't stand up for myself? Can't expect to be treated with respect in my own home?" "That's not what I meant," he backpedaled. "I just think we need to handle this delicately." I laughed bitterly. "Delicately? Like how she's been so delicate in tearing me down for years?" Sam's face softened. "Abby, please, let's just calm down and—" "No," I said firmly. "I'm done calming down. I'm done pretending everything is okay when it's not. We need to make a change, Sam, a big one." His eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm saying we need to move out, find our own place, just the two of us." The color drained from Sam's face. "Move out, but this is our home, our family." "Your family," I corrected, "not mine. Never mine, according to your mother." Sam opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by a shrill voice from upstairs. "Samuel, who are you talking to down there?" We both froze, staring at each other. In that moment, I saw something shift in Sam's eyes. A flicker of understanding, maybe even agreement. But before he could speak, Margaret appeared at the top of the stairs, her eyes red and puffy. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with false surprise. "It's you, Abigail. I thought I heard voices." As she descended the stairs, I felt my resolve harden. This was it, the moment of truth. I looked at Sam, silently pleading with him to stand with me, to choose our marriage over his mother's manipulation. His gaze darted between me and Margaret, indecision written all over his face. And in that suspended moment, with the air thick with tension, I realized that everything— my marriage, my future, my sanity— hinged on what happened next. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with the confrontation that was to come. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I made my decision. It was time to talk to Sam, really talk to him, about our future. I found him in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. His eyes were rimmed with dark circles, mirroring my own sleepless night. "Sam," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "we need to talk about what happened yesterday." He nodded, gesturing for me to sit. "I know, Abby. I've been thinking about it all night." I took a deep breath. I meant what I said. "We need to move out, set some boundaries with your parents." Sam's grip tightened on his mug. "Abby, that's a big step. This is our home." "Is it?" I interrupted. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels like we're just guests in your parents' house. Guests who pay the mortgage, but still have no say." He flinched at my words. "That's not fair. They've done a lot for us." "And we're grateful," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "But Sam, can't you see how your mother's behavior is tearing us apart? We need our own space, our own life." Sam ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as a sign of his internal struggle. "I hear you, Abby. I do. But they're my family. I can't just abandon them." "And what about me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Aren't I your family, too?" The silence that followed was deafening. I watched emotions play across Sam's face. Guilt, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite name. Finally, he spoke. "Of course you are. You're my wife. I love you." "Then prove it," I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "Stand with me on this. Let's start our life together, just us." Sam opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Margaret appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing as she took in our clasped hands. "Good morning," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." I felt Sam's hand tense in mine, but I didn't let go. "Actually, Margaret, we were just discussing—" "Oh, I'm sure it can wait," she interrupted, bustling into the kitchen. "Samuel, dear, I need your help with something in the garage. That old chest of drawers is just too heavy for your father and me to move." I saw the conflict in Sam's eyes as he looked between his mother and me. My heart sank as he slowly pulled his hand away. "I'll be right there, Mom," he said, not meeting my gaze. As Margaret swept out of the room, Sam turned to me. "We'll finish this conversation later, okay?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As he left the kitchen, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I spent the rest of the morning in a daze, going through the motions of my daily routine while my mind raced with plans. By the time lunch rolled around, I had made up my mind. I found Sam in the backyard, tinkering with the lawnmower. "We need to talk?" I said, my voice firm. "Now." He looked up. Surprise etched on his face. "Abby, I told you we'd finish our conversation later." "No," I cut him off. "We're doing this now. I've made a decision, Sam. If you won't move out with me, then I'll go alone." His face paled. "What? Abby, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life," I said, my heart pounding. "I love you, Sam, but I can't live like this anymore. Something has to change, and if you won't make that change with me, then I'll have to do it on my own." As the weight of my words settled between us, I saw a flicker of something in Sam's eyes. Fear, maybe, or realization. This was it, the moment that would define our future. "So," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what's it going to be, Sam? Are you with me, or not?" The ball was in his court now, and as I stood there, heart in my throat, I knew that whatever his answer, nothing would ever be the same again. The silence that followed my ultimatum seemed to stretch for an eternity. Sam's face was a canvas of conflicting emotions, shock, fear, and something that looked almost like admiration. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Abby, I don't want to lose you." I felt a glimmer of hope. "Then come with me, Sam. Let's start fresh, just the two of us." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before. "It's not that simple. They're my parents. Abby, I can't just abandon them." "And what about me?" I countered, my voice rising. "Am I supposed to just accept being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home?" Sam flinched at my words. "No, of course not. But maybe if we talk to them, explain how we're feeling." I cut him off with a bitter laugh. "Talk to them? Sam, we've been trying to talk to them for years. Nothing changes." Just then we heard the back door open. Margaret's voice floated out to us. "Samuel, are you out here? I need your help with something." I saw the conflict in Sam's eyes as he glanced towards the house. I should go see what she needs. Something inside me snapped. No, Sam, you need to stay here and finish this conversation with your wife. His eyes widened at my tone. Abby, Samuel. Margaret's voice was more insistent now. Sam looked torn, his gaze darting between me and the house. I held my breath, waiting for his decision. To my surprise, he called out, Just a minute, Mom. I'm talking to Abby. I felt a surge of hope, but it was short-lived. Margaret appeared at the back door, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. What's going on out here? She demanded, striding towards us. I straightened my spine, ready for the confrontation. We're discussing our future, Margaret. Sam and I are thinking about moving out. The color drained from Margaret's face. Moving out? But why? This is your home. Is it? I challenged. Because it feels more like your home, where Sam and I just happen to live. Margaret's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you, after everything we've done for you? That's enough, Mom, Sam interrupted, his voice firmer than I'd ever heard it. Abby's right. We need our own space. I felt a surge of pride and love for my husband in that moment. But Margaret wasn't done. Samuel, you can't be serious. What about your father and me? We need you here. Sam's resolve seemed to waver. We won't be far, Mom. We just need. Need what? Margaret's voice was shrill now. To abandon your family? Is that what she's convinced you to do? I'd had enough. Stop it, Margaret. This isn't about abandoning anyone. It's about Sam and I having our own life. Margaret turned on me, her eyes blazing. You've poisoned my son against us. I knew from the day he brought you home that you'd try to tear this family apart. Mom, Sam's voice was sharp. That's enough. But Margaret was on a roll. If you leave this house, Samuel, don't bother coming back. You'll no longer be welcome here. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Sam, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. Sam's face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. He looked from his mother to me, indecision written all over his features. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. Sam, I love you, but I can't live like this anymore. If you choose to stay, I'll understand, but I'm leaving, with or without you. The ball was in Sam's court now. As I stood there, heart in my throat, I knew that his next words would determine the course of our future. The tension in the air was palpable as Sam opened his mouth to speak. The tension in the room was suffocating as Sam's words hung in the air. We're moving out, he said, his voice firm but tinged with sadness. Abby and I need our own space. Margaret's face contorted with rage. How dare you, after everything we've done for you? I stepped forward, my heart pounding. This isn't about what you've done for us, Margaret. It's about what we need to do for our marriage. Sam's father, Robert, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Now let's all calm down and discuss this rationally. But Margaret was beyond reason. Rational? There's nothing rational about abandoning your family. This is all her doing. She pointed an accusing finger at me. I felt a surge of anger. Stop blaming me for everything, Margaret. Your son is capable of making his own decisions. Sam put a hand on my arm, his touch steadying me. Mom, this isn't Abby's fault. We've both decided this is what's best for us. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but I could see the calculation behind them. Samuel, if you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. You'll no longer be welcome in this house. I watched Sam's face, my heart in my throat. This was the moment of truth. To my relief and pride, Sam stood his ground. If that's how you feel, Mom, then I guess this is goodbye. As we turned to leave, Margaret's voice stopped us cold. Fine, go, but don't think you'll get away with this. That house belongs to us, remember? You'll have nothing. I froze, the implications of her words sinking in. We'd been paying the mortgage, but the deed was still in their name. How could I have forgotten that crucial detail? Sam's face paled. Mom, you wouldn't. Try me, she hissed. Robert stepped forward looking uncomfortable. Margaret, maybe we should. Stay out of this, Robert, she snapped. I felt a wave of desperation wash over me. Everything we'd worked for, everything we'd built, was slipping away. But I refused to let Margaret win. Fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Keep the house. We'll start over somewhere else. Sam looked at me, surprise and admiration in his eyes. Abby, are you sure? I nodded, squeezing his hand. We have each other. That's all that matters. As we packed our belongings, the atmosphere in the house was thick with tension. Margaret alternated between icy silence and tearful pleas, while Robert hovered uncertainly in the background. Just as we were about to leave, Ellen appeared at the door. "I heard raised voices," she said, concern etched on her face. "Is everything okay?" I felt a rush of gratitude for my friend. "We're leaving, Ellen, for good." Understanding dawned in her eyes. She pulled me into a tight hug. "You're doing the right thing, honey. Stay strong." As we loaded the last of our boxes into the car, I saw Robert approach Sam. They spoke in hushed tones, and I saw Sam nod gravely. "What was that about?" I asked as he slid into the driver's seat. Sam sighed. "Dad slipped me some cash, said he was sorry about everything." I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe not all family ties were severed. As we pulled out of the driveway, I saw Margaret watching from the window, her face a mask of anger and hurt. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but mostly I just felt sad for her. We drove in silence for a while, the weight of what we'd done settling over us. Finally, Sam spoke. "Where do we go from here, Abby?" I took a deep breath, realizing I didn't have all the answers. We had no home, little money, and an uncertain future. But we had each other, and that gave me strength. "I don't know exactly," I said, reaching for his hand, "but we'll figure it out together." As we drove towards an unknown future, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. We'd taken a huge risk, but for the first time in years I felt truly free. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them side by side. Little did I know, the biggest challenge was yet to come. The small apartment we'd rented felt claustrophobic as I paced back and forth, rehearsing the lines I'd prepared. Sam would be home any minute, and I had to make this convincing. My heart raced as I heard his key in the lock. "Abby?" Sam called out as he entered. "I'm home." I took a deep breath and stepped into view, my face a mask of anger. "We need to talk, Sam." He froze, sensing the tension in my voice. "What's wrong?" I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice trembling with feigned emotion. "Living like this, cut off from your family, it's tearing me apart." Confusion flickered across Sam's face. "But Abby, this was your idea. You wanted to leave." "I know what I said," I snapped, internally wincing at the hurt in his eyes. "But I was wrong. We've lost everything, Sam. Our home, our security, your family." Sam reached for me, but I stepped back. "Abby, please, we can work this out." Just then, right on cue, Sam's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his face paling. "It's Mom," I gestured sharply. "Answer it. Put it on speaker." He hesitated, then complied. Margaret's voice filled the room, shrill and demanding. "Samuel? Are you there? We need to talk about this ridiculous situation you've gotten yourself into." I watched Sam's face, seeing the conflict in his eyes. "Mom, now's not a good time." "Nonsense," Margaret interrupted. "It's time you came to your senses and came home. You've made your point. Now it's time to stop this foolishness and remember where your loyalties lie." I saw Sam's resolve wavering, and for a moment I feared I'd pushed too far. But then he straightened his shoulders. "Mom, I've told you. Abby and I made this decision together. We're not coming back." Margaret's voice turned cold. "Is that her talking, or you? Because the Samuel I raised would never turn his back on his family like this." I stepped closer to the phone, my heart pounding. "That's enough. Margaret, Sam can make his own decisions." "You!" Margaret hissed. "I knew you were behind all this. You've poisoned my son against us." "Well, let me tell you something, Abigail. You might think you've won, but this isn't over. Not by a long shot." The line went dead, leaving us in stunned silence. Sam turned to me, his face a mix of emotions. "Abby, I'm so sorry. I never thought she'd go this far." I let my carefully constructed mask slip, revealing the fear and uncertainty beneath. "What are we going to do, Sam? She's right. We've lost everything." He pulled me into his arms, and I felt a pang of guilt for my deception. "We have each other," he murmured. "That's all that matters." As I buried my face in his chest, I heard a sharp knock at the door. We froze, looking at each other in alarm. "Sam? Abigail? Are you in there?" It was Robert's voice, sounding urgent. Sam opened the door, revealing his father's worried face. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Robert stepped inside, his eyes darting between us. "I had to warn you. Your mother, she's not thinking clearly. She's talking about contesting the mortgage payments, claiming you two were just tenants. She wants to take legal action." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She can't do that. We paid for that house." Robert shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid she can. The deed is still in our names." Sam's face hardened. "This has gone too far. We need to stop her." I nodded, my resolve strengthening. "You're right. It's time to end this once and for all." As we huddled together, planning our next move, I realized that my staged falling out had taken on a life of its own. The lines between deception and reality had blurred, and now everything truly was at stake. I looked at Sam, seeing the determination in his eyes, and knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. But as Robert filled us in on Margaret's plans, a chill ran down my spine. The real battle was just beginning, and I wasn't sure if we were ready for what lay ahead. The courtroom was silent as we waited for the judge to return with her decision. Sam's hand gripped mine tightly, his palm sweaty with nervous anticipation. Across the aisle, Margaret sat rigid, her eyes fixed straight ahead, while Robert slumped beside her, looking defeated. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional turmoil. Margaret had made good on her threats, contesting our claim to the house and accusing us of financial misconduct. But her plan had backfired spectacularly when Robert, pushed to his breaking point, had revealed years of Margaret's own financial deceit. As the judge re-entered the courtroom, I held my breath. This was it, the moment that would determine our future. "In the matter of property ownership and financial claims," the judge began, her voice steady, "I find in favor of Samuel and Abigail." A collective gasp rippled through the room. I felt Sam's arm wrap around me as relief washed over us both. The judge continued, "Furthermore, given the evidence of financial misconduct presented by Mr. Robert Thompson, I am ordering a full audit of the family's finances." I watched as the color drained from Margaret's face. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked truly defeated. As we left the courthouse, Robert approached us hesitantly. "Sam, Abigail, can we talk?" We nodded, following him to a quiet corner. Robert's shoulders sagged as he turned to face us. "I owe you both an apology," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have seen what Margaret was doing, how she was tearing this family apart. I was too weak, too afraid to stand up to her." Sam put a hand on his father's shoulder. "It's okay, Dad. You did the right thing in the end." Robert shook his head. "No, it's not okay, but I want to make it right." He turned to me, his eyes filled with remorse. "Abigail, I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. Can you ever forgive me?" I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Of course, Robert. Your family." As Robert pulled us both into a hug, I caught sight of Margaret over his shoulder. She stood alone, watching us with a mixture of anger and longing on her face. For a moment, I felt a twinge of pity. Then I remembered all the pain she'd caused, and I turned away. That evening, as Sam and I sat in our small apartment, surrounded by boxes ready for our move back into our rightful home, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "I have a confession to make," I said, turning to Sam, his eyebrows raised in question. "That fight we had when your dad showed up, I staged it. I thought if I could make your mother show her true colors, you'd finally see how toxic she was." I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. To my surprise, Sam laughed. "Oh, Abby," he said, pulling me close, "I knew." "You knew?" I gasped. "But how?" He smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Because I know you, and I love you, every clever, determined inch of you." As we sat there, planning our future free from Margaret's oppressive influence, I realized that we'd gained so much more than just a house. We'd reclaimed our independence, our self-respect, and our right to live life on our own terms. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But as I looked at Sam, I knew we could face anything together. "So," I said, a smile playing on my lips, "ready for our next adventure?" Sam grinned, pulling me in for a kiss. "With you? Always." As we sealed our promise with that kiss, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We'd weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and now, finally, we were free to write our own story. The future stretched out before us, full of possibility and hope, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us next. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing down my dress for the 100th time. The reflection staring back at me was a far cry from the scared, broken woman I'd been just a few years ago. Max's voice drifted up from downstairs, reminding me we'd be late if I didn't hurry. "Coming, honey," I called back, taking a deep breath. Tonight was important, our first dinner with his mother since we'd gotten married. I'd only met Marianne once before, at the wedding, and her piercing gaze had left me feeling like I'd been dissected. As I descended the stairs, Max's face lit up. "You look beautiful, Leah," he said, pulling me in for a kiss. I relaxed into his embrace, savoring the feeling of safety and love, something I'd never truly known before him. "Thanks," I murmured. "I just hope your mother approves." Max chuckled. "Don't worry about her. She'll love you once she gets to know you." If only I'd known then how wrong he was. The drive to Marianne's sprawling Victorian home was quiet, my stomach churning with nerves. As we pulled up, I noticed the meticulously manicured lawn and the gleaming Mercedes in the driveway. "Ready?" Max asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded, plastering on a smile, as I'll ever be. Marianne answered the door herself, perfectly coiffed and wearing a string of pearls that probably cost more than our car. "Maxwell, darling," she cooed, air-kissing his cheeks. Her gaze slid to me, and I swore the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Leah, how? Nice to see you again." "Thank you for having us, Marianne," I said, willing my voice not to shake. She ushered us inside, and I marveled at the opulent decor. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of stern-faced men and women staring down at us. "Dinner's nearly ready," Marianne announced. "Maxwell, why don't you pour us some wine?" As Max headed to the bar cart, Marianne turned to me. "So, Leah," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "tell me about your family. What does your father do?" I swallowed hard. He works in construction. My mom's a teacher." Marianne's lips thinned. "How quaint. And you? What is it you do again?" "I'm a social worker," I replied, lifting my chin. "I help families in crisis." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it." Max returned with our drinks, oblivious to the tension. "What are we talking about?" "Oh, just getting to know your lovely wife better," Marianne said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Did you know her father's in construction, dear? Isn't that fascinating?" I saw a flicker of discomfort cross Max's face, but he quickly covered it. "Leah's family is wonderful, Mother. You'd like them if you met them," Marianne hummed noncommittally. "Well, shall we eat?" Throughout dinner, Marianne peppered me with questions about my background, each one feeling like a subtle jab. I answered as politely as I could, but my patience was wearing thin. "So when can we expect some grandchildren?" Marianne asked suddenly, setting down her fork. I choked on my wine. "I'm sorry?" "Children, dear. Surely you two are planning on starting a family soon? Maxwell isn't getting any younger, you know." Max cleared his throat. "Mother, we've only been married a few months. There's plenty of time for that." Marianne's eyes narrowed. "Nonsense. The Caldwell name needs to be carried on. You do want children, don't you, Leah?" I felt trapped, all eyes on me. "We haven't really discussed it yet," I managed. "Well, you'd better get to it," Marianne said sharply. "A woman your age, fertility doesn't last forever." "Mother," Max warned, but the damage was done. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me," I muttered, fleeing to the bathroom. As I splashed cold water on my face, I stared at my reflection. What had I gotten myself into? Max had seemed so different from the men in my past, kind, supportive, loving. But now, faced with his mother's clear disdain, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. A soft knock at the door startled me. "Leah?" Max called. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was time to have a serious talk with my husband about where we stood and what kind of future we really had together. The weeks following that disastrous dinner with Marianne were tense. Max and I tiptoed around each other, the elephant in the room growing larger by the day. I knew we needed to talk, but every time I tried to broach the subject, Max found an excuse to change the topic or leave the room. It all came to a head one Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry when Max's phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced over, not meaning to pry, but the name on the screen made my blood run cold. "Mother." Before I could look away, the message preview popped up. "Have you talked to Leah about children yet? Time is running out." My hands shook as I set down the shirt I'd been folding. "Max!" I called out, my voice sharper than I'd intended. He appeared in the doorway, a wary expression on his face. "What's wrong?" I pointed to his phone. "Care to explain why your mother is texting you about our reproductive plans?" Max's face paled. He snatched up the phone, quickly reading the message. "Leah, I can explain." "Please do," I said, crossing my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and your mother have been discussing our private life behind my back." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd come to recognize. It's not like that. She's just concerned. Concerned? I echoed incredulously. Max, she's obsessed. And you're enabling her. She means well, he protested weakly. She just wants us to be happy. I laughed. A bitter sound. Happy? You think pressuring me into having a baby I'm not ready for will make me happy? Max's expression hardened. And when will you be ready, Leah? We're not getting any younger. Don't you want a family? His words hit me like a slap. Of course I do, I said quietly, but on our terms, not your mother's. My mother has nothing to do with this, Max insisted, but I could see the lie in his eyes. Really? Then why is she texting you about it? Why are you discussing our personal decisions with her at all? Max's jaw clenched. She's family, Leah. She has a right to know. No, I cut him off. She doesn't. This is between you and me, or at least it should be. We stared at each other for a long moment, the gulf between us widening with each passing second. Finally, Max spoke, his voice low and dangerous. Maybe my mother's right. Maybe you're not the right person to carry on the Caldwell name after all. I recoiled as if he'd struck me. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he said slowly, that I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake marrying someone so different from us. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt my world tilting on its axis, everything I thought I knew about my husband crumbling before my eyes. Get out, I whispered. Max blinked. What? Get out, I shouted, grabbing the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurling it at him. It shattered against the wall as he ducked. I need time to think, and I can't do that with you here. For a moment I thought he might argue, but then he nodded stiffly, grabbing his keys and wallet. I'll stay at my mother's tonight, he said. We can talk tomorrow when we've both calmed down. As the front door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, surrounded by the remnants of our broken picture frame. How had things gone so wrong so quickly? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? My phone buzzed, and I reached for it mechanically. A text from Marianne flashed across the screen. Max told me what happened. You're making a big mistake, dear. Come over tomorrow, and we'll sort this all out. I stared at the message, a cold fury building in my chest. No more playing nice, no more trying to please everyone. It was time to stand up for myself, even if it meant losing everything I thought I wanted. With shaking fingers, I typed out a reply. Stay out of my marriage, Marianne. This is your only warning. As I hit send, I knew I'd just declared war. And I had no idea if I was ready for the battle ahead. The weeks after my confrontation with Max were a blur of tense silences and forced politeness. We'd reached an uneasy truce, but the weight of unspoken words hung heavy between us. I knew we were both waiting for the other shoe to drop. It finally did on a crisp autumn morning. I was sipping my coffee when Max cleared his throat, setting down his newspaper with an air of forced casualness. Leah, he began, his voice carefully neutral. I've been thinking, maybe we should see a fertility specialist. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Max leaned forward, his eyes earnest. It's been months, and we're not getting any younger. I just think it might be wise to explore our options. The unspoken pressure from Marianne hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I set my mug down with a sharp clank. Max, we agreed to wait. I'm not ready. When will you be ready? He interrupted, frustration seeping into his tone. We can't put this off forever, Leah. Don't you want a family? His words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. Of course I do, but on our terms, not your mother's. Max's jaw clenched. This isn't about my mother. This is about us, our future. I laughed bitterly. Is it? Because it feels an awful lot like it's about appeasing Marianne and her obsession with continuing the Caldwell line. That's not fair, Max protested, but I could see the flicker of guilt in his eyes. Isn't it? I challenged. Then why the sudden urgency? Why can't we just let things happen naturally? Max ran a hand through his hair, a telltale sign of his agitation. Because we don't have the luxury of time. Look, I've already made an appointment with Dr. Reeves. She's the best fertility specialist in the city. I felt like I'd been slapped. You what? Without even discussing it with me first? I knew you'd react like this, Max said, his voice rising. That's why I didn't tell you. Sometimes, Leah, you need a little push. A push, I echoed incredulously. This isn't a push, Max. This is a shove off a cliff. We glared at each other across the kitchen table, the distance between us seeming to grow with each passing second. Finally, I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Fine," I said. "I'll go to the appointment." Max's face lit up. "Really? Leah, that's wonderful." I held up a hand, silencing him. "I'm not finished. I'll go, but on one condition. Your mother stays out of this. Completely. No more discussions about our private life. No more helpful suggestions. This is between you and me. Agreed?" Max hesitated, and I saw the struggle play out across his face. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. The appointment was set for the following week. As I sat in Dr. Reeves' sterile office, listening to her explain the battery of tests we'd need to undergo, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing control of my own life. Max, on the other hand, was practically vibrating with enthusiasm. He peppered the doctor with questions about success rates and treatment options, while I sat in numb silence. As we left the clinic, a wave of nausea hit me. I barely made it to a nearby trash can before emptying the contents of my stomach. "Leah," Max exclaimed, rushing to my side. "Are you all right?" I wiped my mouth, a strange calm settling over me. "I'm fine," I said. "Just a bit of nerves, I guess." But as Max helped me to the car, chattering excitedly about next steps, a realization dawned on me. The nausea, the fatigue I'd been feeling lately, it couldn't be, could it? I placed a hand on my stomach, a mix of fear and wonder coursing through me. If I was right, everything was about to change, and I had no idea if I was ready for what was coming. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Max, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I think I might be pregnant." The day of our 20-week ultrasound arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Max and I had barely spoken about the pregnancy, tiptoeing around each other like strangers sharing a house. As we sat in the waiting room, I could feel the tension radiating off him in waves. "Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell?" The technician called, her smile bright and oblivious to the undercurrent between us. We followed her into the dimly lit room, and I settled onto the exam table. Max stood awkwardly by my side, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Are you ready to see your baby?" the technician asked cheerfully. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As she spread the cold gel on my stomach, I reached for Max's hand out of habit. He hesitated for a moment before taking it, his grip loose and uncomfortable. The room filled with the rapid whoosh-whoosh of our baby's heartbeat. Despite everything, tears sprang to my eyes. "That's our baby," I whispered, glancing at Max. His face was unreadable, eyes fixed on the grainy image on the screen. "Is everything normal?" he asked, his voice tight. The technician nodded, moving the wand across my belly. "Everything looks perfect. Would you like to know the gender?" I felt Max stiffen beside me. We hadn't discussed whether we wanted to find out, but suddenly I needed to know. "Yes," I said firmly, squeezing Max's hand. "We'd like to know." The technician smiled, adjusting the image. "Congratulations, you're having a little girl." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. A girl. My daughter. I felt a surge of love so powerful it took my breath away, but Max's hand had gone limp in mine. I turned to look at him, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. Disappointment, anger, maybe even disgust. "A girl?" he repeated, his voice flat. The technician, sensing the shift in mood, quickly wrapped up the appointment. As we left the clinic, the silence between us was deafening. In the car, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Max, talk to me. What's going on?" He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "It's nothing. I guess I was hoping for a boy." "Hoping? Max, this is our child, our daughter. How can you be disappointed?" He sighed heavily. "You don't understand, Leah. In my family, the firstborn has always been a son. It's tradition. It's expected. I felt like I'd been slapped. Expected? By who? Your mother?" Max's jaw clenched. "This isn't about my mother. It's about carrying on the Caldwell name, the legacy." "Stop the car," I said quietly. "What?" "I said, stop the car!" I shouted. Max pulled over and I fumbled with my seatbelt, desperate for air. As I stumbled out onto the sidewalk, Max called after me. "Leah, where are you going?" I whirled to face him, fury and heartbreak warring inside me. "How dare you?" I hissed. "How dare you taint this moment, this miracle, with your outdated sexist expectations? This is our daughter, Max, a living, breathing part of both of us. And if you can't see how precious that is, then maybe we've made a terrible mistake." Max's face paled. "Leah, you don't mean that. Come on, let's go home and talk about this." but I was already backing away, shaking my head. I can't go back to that house, not right now. I need time to think. As I turned and walked away, I heard Max call out behind me, his voice tinged with panic. But I didn't look back. My hand rested protectively on my stomach, where my daughter, my perfect, beautiful daughter, was growing. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that everything had changed. The life I thought I wanted, the future I had planned with Max, it was all crumbling around me. And as the first tears began to fall, I realized I had a choice to make, one that would determine not just my future, but my daughter's as well. I spent the night at my parents' house, ignoring the constant buzzing of my phone as Max tried to reach me. By morning, I felt hollowed out but resolute. I had to face this head-on. When I returned home, Max was waiting, his face a mask of concern and guilt. "Leah, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean." I held up a hand, silencing him. "We need to talk, but not now. Your mother's coming over, isn't she?" Max nodded, looking sheepish. "I told her about the baby. She insisted on coming." My stomach clenched, but I steeled myself. "Fine, let's get this over with." Marianne arrived like a storm, bursting through our front door without knocking. Her eyes locked onto me immediately, narrowing as they took in my protective stance, one hand resting on my barely there bump. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "I hear congratulations are in order. Though I can't say I'm not disappointed." I felt Max tense beside me, but to my surprise he spoke up. "Mother, please, this is our child we're talking about." Marianne waved him off, her gaze never leaving me. "Don't be naive, Maxwell. This girl will never be able to carry on the Caldwell name properly. You know what needs to be done." The room went deathly quiet. I felt the blood drain from my face as her words sank in. "What are you saying, Marianne?" She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "There are ways, you know, discreet clinics that can take care of this little problem. No one would ever have to know." I recoiled, bile rising in my throat. "You can't be serious. This is your grandchild." "A granddaughter." Marianne spat the word like a curse. "What use is that to our family? No, it's better to start over. Try again for a proper heir." I turned to Max, desperate for his support, but the conflict on his face made my heart sink. "Max," I whispered, pleading. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe we should consider all our options, Leah." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I stumbled back, putting distance between myself and these strangers wearing the faces of my husband and mother-in-law. "Get out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Marianne smirked, triumphant. "Now, dear, let's not be hasty." "I said get out!" I screamed, my composure shattering. "Both of you. How dare you come into my home and suggest I murder my child, my daughter?" Max reached for me, his face pale. "Leah, please, we're just talking." I jerked away from his touch. "No, Max, we're done talking. I want you both out of this house right now." Marianne drew herself up, indignant. "You can't speak to us this way. Maxwell, control your wife!" But Max seemed frozen, torn between his mother and me. In that moment, seeing his indecision, something inside me broke. "If you won't leave, I will," I said, my voice eerily calm. I grabbed my purse and keys, moving towards the door. "Where are you going?" Max called after me, panic edging into his voice. I paused at the threshold, one hand on my stomach, the other on the doorknob. Somewhere safe. Somewhere my daughter will be loved and valued no matter what. As I walked out, leaving them stunned in my wake, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The decision I'd been struggling with had suddenly become crystal clear. I got into my car, my hands shaking as I started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of Max in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway looking lost. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. My focus was on the road ahead, on the future I needed to secure for myself and my daughter. Whatever it took, I would protect her, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I wanted. With tears streaming down my face, I drove towards an uncertain future. But one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. I spent the next week at my parents' house, ignoring Max's constant calls and messages. My mom hovered anxiously, while my dad muttered about teaching that boy a lesson. But I needed time to think, to plan my next move. On the 8th day, a text from Max finally broke through my defenses. "Please, Leah, we need to talk. I'll meet you anywhere." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, the park where we had our first date. As I approached our old favorite bench, I saw Max pacing, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. "Leah," he breathed, relief washing over his face. "I've been so worried." I sat down, keeping my distance. "Say what you need to say, Max." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I've been a coward, letting my mother dictate our lives. But I've had time to think, and I know what's important now. You and our daughter. That's all that matters." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the memory of his silence in the face of Marianne's cruelty still stung. "Words are easy, Max. But when it mattered most, you didn't stand up for us." "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But please give me a chance to make it right. I've told my mother she's no longer welcome in our lives unless she can accept our family as it is." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly extinguished by suspicion. "And how did she take that?" Max's face darkened. "Not well. She threatened to cut me off, to write me out of the will. But I don't care about any of that. I only care about you and our baby." I stood up, needing to move to think. "I don't know if I can trust you, Max. How do I know this isn't just another attempt to placate me?" He reached for my hand, his eyes pleading. "Come home with me. Let me prove it to you. I've changed the locks, blocked my mother's number. Our house is ours again. No more interference, no more pressure." Against my better judgment, I let him lead me to his car. The drive home was tense, filled with unspoken words and lingering doubts. As we pulled into our driveway, I felt a sense of unease. Something was off. Max fumbled with his keys, muttering about the new locks, when suddenly the front door swung open. Marianne stood there, her face a mask of righteous fury. "So," she spat, "the prodigal daughter-in-law returns." I whirled on Max, betrayal burning in my chest. "You said—" "I didn't know," Max protested, genuine shock on his face. "Mother, how did you get in here?" Marianne waved a key, smirking. "I had a copy made, of course. Did you really think you could shut me out of my son's life so easily?" I backed away, my hand instinctively covering my stomach. "I'm leaving. This was a mistake." Max grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Leah, wait. This isn't what I wanted. I swear." Marianne advanced, her voice dripping with false concern. "Now, dear, let's not be hasty. We're all family here. We only want what's best for you and the child." The way she said child sent chills down my spine. I jerked away from Max, my heart pounding. "Stay away from me. Both of you." As I turned to run, I saw something in Marianne's hand. A syringe? My blood ran cold as realization dawned. This wasn't just about control anymore. This was about eliminating the problem entirely. "Max!" I screamed, terror gripping me. "Do something." But Max stood frozen, torn between his mother and his wife, indecision paralyzing him once again. In that moment, I knew with sickening clarity that I was truly alone. No one was coming to save me. If I wanted to protect myself and my daughter, I would have to do it myself. With a surge of adrenaline, I shoved past Marianne and ran, my only thought to get as far away from this nightmare as possible. Behind me, I heard Max calling my name, but I didn't look back. This time I was done with second chances. It was time to save myself. I stumbled into my parents' house, gasping for air, my heart pounding. My mom rushed to me, her face etched with concern. "Leah, honey, what happened?" Through sobs, I recounted the horrifying scene at Max's house. My dad's face darkened with each word, his fists clenching at his sides. "That's it," he growled. "I'm calling the police." "No," I cried, grabbing his arm. "We can't. Not yet. I need help." That's when my mom mentioned Paul. Remember Paul Hawkins? He's a lawyer now, specializing in family law. Maybe he could help. The name stirred something in my memory, a kind smile, a steadfast presence from my youth. I nodded, desperate for any lifeline. "Call him, please." Paul arrived within the hour, his familiar face now etched with lines of experience and concern. As soon as he saw me, his professional demeanor softened. "Leah," he said gently, "I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I promise we're going to fight for you and your daughter." Over the next few days, Paul became my rock. We pored over legal documents, building a case not just for divorce, but for a restraining order against both Max and Marianne. Paul's quiet strength and unwavering support gave me the courage to face what lay ahead. "We need to move fast," Paul explained one evening, his voice tight with urgency. "Max's family has connections. If we don't act now, they might try to manipulate the system." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. What do we do? Paul leaned forward, his eyes intense. We go on the offensive. I've gathered evidence of Marianne's threats, Max's complicity. We'll file for emergency custody and a protection order. But Leah, he paused, taking my hand, are you ready for what comes next? This won't be easy. I placed my other hand over my growing belly, feeling a fierce protectiveness surge through me. I have to be ready. For her. The next morning, as Paul and I prepared to leave for the courthouse, my phone buzzed with a message from Max. Please, Leah, don't do this. We can work it out. For the sake of our family. I showed Paul the message, my hands shaking. He frowned, reading it twice before looking up at me. This could be a trap, Leah. We need to be careful. But something in Max's words tugged at my heart. Despite everything, a small part of me still hoped for reconciliation, for the family I dreamed of. I need to see him, I said, my voice barely a whisper. One last time, to look him in the eye and know for sure. Paul's face tightened with concern. Leah, it's not safe. Let me handle this legally. No, I interrupted, a sudden clarity washing over me. I need to do this. For closure, for strength. I need to face him on my terms. After a long moment, Paul nodded reluctantly. All right, but I'm coming with you, and we do this my way. Controlled environment, witnesses present. As we drove to the agreed-upon meeting place, a busy cafe in the center of town, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it, the moment that would define my future, my daughter's future. We entered the cafe, and I saw Max immediately. He looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. As I approached, flanked by Paul and my pair, Max stood, reaching out to me. Leah, please. But before he could finish, the cafe door burst open. Marianne stormed in, her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little tramp, she screeched, lunging towards me. In that moment, time seemed to slow. I saw Paul move to intercept her, saw my father step protectively in front of me. But it was Max's reaction that froze me in place. He stood there, paralyzed once again, torn between his mother and his wife. And in his indecision, I saw my future laid bare. As chaos erupted around us, I made my choice. No more wavering, no more second chances. It was time to fight for the life my daughter deserved, with or without Max by my side. The cafe erupted into chaos. Marianne's shriek cut through the air as she lunged at me, her eyes wild with rage. Paul moved swiftly, placing himself between us, while my father pulled me back protectively. That's enough, Paul's voice boomed, silencing the room. He turned to Max, who stood frozen, his face a mask of indecision. Control your mother, or I'll have her arrested for assault. Max finally snapped out of his stupor, grabbing Marianne's arm. Mother, stop this! You're making a scene. But Marianne was beyond reason. She wrenched free from Max's grip, her finger pointing accusingly at me. You'll regret this, Leah. I'll make sure you never see a penny of the Caldwell fortune. You and that abomination you're carrying. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. I felt a surge of strength course through me, fueled by anger and a fierce protectiveness for my unborn daughter. I stepped forward, my voice steady and clear. Listen carefully, Marianne, because I'm only going to say this once. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you or your family. What I want is for you to stay away from me and my child. Forever. I turned to Max, my heart breaking even as I spoke the words I knew I had to say. And you, Max. I loved you. I thought we had a future together, but I see now that you'll never be strong enough to stand up to her, to stand up for us. Max's face crumpled. Leah, please. I can change. We can work this out. No, I interrupted, my resolve strengthening with each word. We can't. I won't raise my daughter in a home where she's seen as less than, where her worth is determined by her gender. She deserves better. I deserve better. Paul stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Mr. Caldwell, Mrs. Caldwell, I have here a set of divorce papers and a restraining order. I strongly suggest you sign them now, or will be forced to take this matter to court. And I assure you, you don't want the details of your behavior made public. Marianne sputtered, her face red with fury. But Max, to my surprise, seemed to deflate. He looked at me, then at his mother, and for the first time I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Enough, Mother, he said quietly. It's over. With shaking hands, Max took the papers from Paul and signed them. Marianne wailed in protest, but Max silenced her with a look. We've lost, Mother. It's time to let go. As they left the cafe, Max paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. "I'm sorry, Leah. I hope you find happiness." And then they were gone. The tension in the room dissipated, leaving me feeling drained but strangely light. Paul turned to me, his eyes filled with concern and something else I couldn't quite name. "Are you okay?" I nodded, placing a hand on my belly. "We're okay, both of us." As we left the cafe, surrounded by the protective circle of Paul and my parents, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. Paul squeezed my hand gently. "You were incredible in there, Leah. Your daughter is lucky to have you as her mother." I smiled, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you, Paul, for everything. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you." He looked at me intently, his voice soft but sure. "You're stronger than you know, Leah. You would have found a way, but I'm glad I could be here for you." As we walked into the sunlight, I felt a kick from my daughter, as if she was affirming my choices. I laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. "What is it?" Paul asked, smiling at my sudden mirth. "Nothing," I said, grinning. "Just thinking about the future, our future." And as we drove away, leaving the cafe and all it represented behind, I felt a sense of excitement building. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the journey. With my daughter by my side and friends like Paul to support me, I knew we could face anything. The battle was over and we had won. Now it was time to start living.